good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Karen Carabani. We're gonna get this meeting started, tonight. As you guys know, we have a presentation from our experts from, Arundel, Economic Development on, that topic, as well as Anne Arundel County Public Schools, to speak on schools. So I'm looking for a motion, to approve the agenda. Second, please.
Second.
Everybody in agreement? Great, awesome. And then we're just gonna go ahead, keep it moving, and we're going to, if I can get a motion to approve also the, kickoff meeting and November meeting on notes. Motion, second, everybody in agreement?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay,
And just to confirm, nobody in disagreement with any of the meeting notes.
thank you for that, Terry. And, I guess back to Mark.
Okay, so what we'll be doing tonight again is coming on the heels of the environmental discussion and having that historical context, we'll talk about how schools play a role here in land use as well as economic development. So we have three speakers from those respective agencies. And again, just trying to think about how we tie all this together, what type of impact any future development has on schools, how we address capacity for that. And then also thinking about some of the potential or the larger redevelopment sites or vacant sites or underutilized sites within Region 1. And just at this point, just getting your ideas of what types of uses you'd like to potentially see on those sites, as well as the intensity on that site. So if it's a residential development, how dense could you see development happening on that site? How many stories, things like that is what we're going to generally talk about today. We're going to get into then the actual zoning sort of discussion later in the spring, where we actually talk about, you know what, maybe a more intense industrial use or zoning district is more appropriate on this site. And that's where the rubber really hits the road, really identifying what the specifics of somebody can do on their property. But again, at this point tonight, we just want to sort of learn some of those general ideas or concepts that you may have for some of these potential redevelopment sites. Again, we do want to be sensitive. Some of these sites are private property. We are currently working with and contacting those individuals to learn more about what their future is on that site and what their thoughts are. Some of it is federal land, so we can sort of think a little bit broader on those sites. Keeping in mind that with federal land, sometimes it might be a little harder to have that land transferred or have it redeveloped in the way that the community may want it. So we'll be talking about those items, and then we'll just touch on the vision statement tonight. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail at the next meeting, and I'll provide some more instruction. And then we'll end up with public comment. So next slide. So we just want to provide an update, sort of again, talk about where we've been, where we're headed. Next slide. So again, we met last month to talk about environmental strategies or issues, and then strategies to address some of those issues. And so we put those strategies up online, had an online questionnaire. We also had a drop-in session. I'm looking at the second bullet, sorry, on December 6th, where we were there in person at the Linthicum Library to help answer any questions folks may have about those environmental strategies. And then lastly is the owner applications. If folks are interested in changing the zoning on their property, that was extended to December 15th. And again, we'll talk more about the zoning applications later this spring. So again, we're at our second meeting. Coming up then are some more topics that you can see the greater connection between land use and housing, redevelopment, and certainly transportation issues we hear a lot about from the public. And then again, as we narrow in on one of the other objectives of this region plan is an actual update to the zoning map. And again, that's what regulates what people can and can't do on their property. Okay, so, and then here it is just graphically shown. The Office of Planning and Zoning up until this point has conducted some needs assessment where we reach out to stakeholders, learn more about what some of those issues are. We've been attending events out in the public, hearing from the public. And we'll be starting to develop a vision statement. And then we've also sort of touched on developing some of the actual strategies for this plan, starting with the environment last month. And when I get to the next steps later this evening, you'll see that we have a couple more engagement opportunities for the public to weigh in on additional strategies that we start developing here over the next couple of months. And like I said, we'll be updating the planned land use map, more on that later, as well as then, like I said, the zoning map. And then hopefully this time next year, we're going through the actual legislative phase, which is the Planning Advisory Board, as well as then an introduction of this plan to County Council for them to officially adopt. Okay. I'm going to sprinkle in occasionally some slides here over the next couple months where we may hear from the public how things are organized or why we do certain things. This was something that we heard about during our round one process. The public was generally interested in, well, how does the county really operate? So here's the larger overview. And I really want to draw your attention to the county operating agencies there in sort of the lower portion of this slide, and identify that there's the Department of Public Works. They're the ones that are doing the engineering and design of roads, for example. They assist with the capital improvement projects. They're the ones that are seeing some of the more tangible items that you see out in your community. Likewise with recreational parks, they have both operating as well as they work closely with the Department of Works to develop new parks within the communities. I'm not going to go through each one, but also want to touch on inspections and permits. So clearly when the office plan, when a property owner submits a development application, that comes to the Office of Planning and Zoning, it gets approved. And then it goes to the Department of Inspections and Permits, who can then issue the grading permit and any other necessary permits for the project to actually be built. So we do work closely with them, but just to sort of emphasize that there is some difference in the work that the Office of Planning and Zoning and Inspections and Permits does. Next slide. This one then breaks down the Office of Planning and Zoning. So starting on the left-hand side is our planning division. You heard from Cultural Resources last month. They talked about how they go about preserving some of the historical resources within the county. We have our research and GIS section. They're the ones that provide a lot of the statistical data for us, as well as some of the mapping products, and especially the hub site where we host a lot of our information up on the website to share with the community about what we're doing. And then Erica, and I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce Erica. She wasn't able to attend last month, but she's with us there, and she'll be working with us on the Region 1 plan as well. So, sorry, I forgot to introduce Erica. So Erica, Sam, and myself are part of the long range planning team. And then within our development division, they're the ones that are reviewing those development applications. So we have a residential team, a regional team, which is mostly commercial, a critical area team that looks at projects that are along the coastline, and then a transportation section that also then helps evaluate these projects. We then have a zoning division who administers the code, as well as then a zoning enforcement team that is out in the community if they hear about any potential violations. So that's the Office of Planning and Zoning. Another important piece of the puzzle here for the Stakeholder Advisory Committee is making sure that we're in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. So what this ensures is that as a public body, you all are a public body, you've been appointed by the county executive and the county council, that you do public business in a public arena, right? That we're not conducting any business on the side, secretly, over email, things like that. That's why you all are BCC'd on emails I send out, is just in case somebody were to reply, we won't want to violate the Open Meetings Act. It also then requires the public to be in attendance, whether we're doing it in person here. We also offer that opportunity over Zoom. And we do make these recordings available to the public afterwards, as well as a set of meeting notes that's required of the Open Meetings Act. Again, all that information is up on the hub site, aacounty.org/region1. So one other item here is, like you heard me say at the beginning, I wanted to count how many folks were in attendance. So our public body here is 15 members, the quorum is 8. Want to make sure that to do the public business, we have a quorum of members. So we need to ensure that we have 8 members at any given time here to vote on anything. Like I mentioned, is if 8 of you are meeting outside of this and you're conducting business, that would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. But if it is just a social setting, you all are friends outside of this, then that is completely okay. And then the last item here is just to note that we do typically include public participation as part of our meetings to hear from the public, but we do offer other alternative ways for the public to engage with us. That's, again, that information can be found on the hub site. People can email us or call us, but it is actually not required as part of these SAC meetings. So there are times where maybe if a meeting is going late, it's at the chair's discretion about whether we do hold public participation. But again, not having it is not a violation of the Open Meetings Act. So just giving you all a crash course. If you are interested, there is another training. I know some of you might be tired of us talking about additional trainings for you all to take, but if you are interested in something like this, we can certainly point you in that direction. You can become an expert in the Open Meetings Act. Okay. So with that, there's just one more slide on adequate public facilities, and then Kyle, I'll hand it off to you. So some of you all may be familiar with this term, APF, or adequate public facilities. I'm not going to go through each one, but just to sort of state that when a development is proposed, we need to ensure that there is adequate school capacity or an adequate public facility to ensure that there isn't a burden on the school system. If a school is designated or considered as closed, then, and it doesn't meet some of these additional criteria since a legislative bill had just recently passed. If it doesn't meet that, then that project has to sit on a waiting list for 6 years, or unless there is capacity. And there are certain exceptions for being exempt from meeting school capacity, or sorry, from meeting the adequate public facilities test for schools. So just something to keep in mind that, again, is we don't build in excess. We're ensuring that there is capacity for those school-aged children. Okay, so I think with that, Kyle, I'll pass it off to you.
Good evening. Director of Facilities for Anne Arundel County Public Schools. So briefly wanted to talk about the school redistricting process. So November 15th, the Board of Education passed phase 1 of redistricting, which is the area highlighted in blue on the screen. It includes North County, part of the District 1 area that you guys are examining. Phase 2 will be an implementation in 26 school year, so 26-27, and now include the area highlighted in yellow. So redistricting is one of the key tools that we have in our toolbox to help balance enrollment as well as capacity in our schools to make sure that we're not over capacity in our buildings. So the plan that was approved moves all the existing schools under 100% or at 100% capacity. Without the redistricting, we would have had about 13 schools over capacity, and those schools ranged from between 100 and 110% all the way greater than 110%. So some of the process that we're going through right now. So legacy transfer students, those are 12th graders, soon to be 12th graders for next year. They have the opportunity to stay at their existing school as part of the approved plan. We'll also be bringing on 2 new schools that are part of the phase 1 redistricting. which were West County Elementary School, which is close to Two Rivers in Crofton, Gambrels area, and then we also have Old Mill West on 97, used to be Papa John's farm. So once February comes around, we'll have a better idea of what those legacy students are, and we'll start very rapidly developing busing routes. So we have to redo all the busing routes for the northern part of the county. That'll take us through June. At the same time, in June, we do the Educational Facilities Master Plan, which is really a 10-year plan of what we think the enrollment patterns will be for the school districts for the entire county. We do update that on an annual basis, submit it to the state of Maryland. They ultimately approve it for our use as far as a planning tool. Southern redistricting will follow a similar schedule as the phase 1 redistricting. So February 2025, we'll release a web tool. That was a very effective tool for us to gain public information, public comment, really helped shape that final plan that we put in front of the board. So between February and May, we'll receive public comment on the options that we have a consultant put together for us. We'll have recommendation of the superintendent in June. The master plan will be submitted to Maryland Department of Planning for review. We'll update all that information prior to giving it to the board, so they have the best information at the time. We'll give the superintendent's recommendation, and then the board will select an option by November for implementation of the 26-27 school year. Capital budget for this year, we're requesting $234 million. 172 of that goes to major capital projects. Those are large capital projects, replacements, renovations, and additions on schools. Recurring projects, these are smaller scale projects. When I say smaller, they can be as large as $30 million, including Lindale Middle School systemic renovation project on the HVAC system. We'll have $62 million request for that. Old Mill Master Plan has been a key thing that we've been working on since 2015. When it's all said and done, we'll spend about $970 million to replace all those buildings. So it started in 2015 with the utilization long-range plan. We also call it the MGT study. We're going to be redoing that in the next year or so. Old Mill Master Plan was approved in 2016. We finally got our initial funding for it in 2019. And then we've been working on a number of projects over the last couple of years here. The blue ones indicate future projects. So we're currently working on Old Mill West, Meade High School, and Old Mill South. Those will open for next school year. Park Elementary School addition in 2025, Cat North, and Old Mill Middle School North in 27, and then wrapping up with the high school in 28. This is an overview of the map of kind of the chess pieces that we're moving around the board right now. So this is Papa John's Farm, Old Mill West High School. This will be Old Mill North, which is the current CAT site. CAT will then move to the Old Mill complex. The high school will move behind the existing high school. Old Mill South will move to Southgate Park. And then we'll tear down this whole building and we'll put fields there. We replace Quarterfield and Rippling Woods. So it's a big initiative, involves a lot of moving pieces. Once we tackle that building, which will start next year with bringing down the South Tower, things have got to roll as far as a domino. Once you start that process, we can't stop. One of the additions in the district that you guys are looking at is the Park Elementary School addition. So that is all completely designed. It's bid, it will be awarded in the next month or so, and that will add 6 classrooms onto that building. Cat North is the next big project that we're going to start this spring. So it's going to bid early next year. Then we'll get started on that. That will be right next to the current Old Mill complex. Another one that I talked about briefly was the long-range planning, so we're asking for recurring project for $300,000 every year so that we can do long-range planning and be better equipped to handle upcoming projects. The state initiatives that are coming out, being able to handle the programmatic needs of the kids. All right, with that, any questions?
Eric Friend, I have one. Bus routing, when you're talking about that, what studies are done as it relates to traffic implications? If we're gonna change up the bus routing and things like that, what happens with respect to the traffic implications and, you know, how that impacts? And I might need some help from the county on this one. From my understanding, there's studies that are done at traffic lights before things can be approved for development. If it's like considered red, yellow, or green, how many times it takes traffic to get through a particular light when things are being, is that considered as part of the redistricting and bus routing?
So we're gonna be developing the bus routes and we'll work with SAC, local DPW to make sure all the timing on the lights are updated to reflect the needs. And then once the school starts, then we'll actually get that real life data and determine what other adjustments need to happen. But we do that on a yearly basis where we meet during the summer and we talk to them about what construction projects we're doing, what construction projects they're doing, making sure our sidewalks are open before the kids go to school. And then also making sure that any of the timing or adjustments that we know about, we let them know about.
Great.
Can you speak to Glen Burnie High School?
As far as,
Just where is it? I don't have children or skin in the game, but I drive by it and it looks pretty old.
Mhm.
Just curious, where is that in the?
So the past couple of years, we've been spending some money on upgrading some of the facades of the buildings, the windows, a lot of those buildings are being updated. We have a 5-year plan that's replacing and upgrading that area. We're currently upgrading the boiler and heating system in that school. So there was a large fuel oil heating system in that school. So we're
Yikes.
replacing it with natural gas. So it'll be a nice upgrade for that school.
What's the capacity in the theater into?
I'd have to get exact numbers for you, but usually our high school capacity is around 2,200, and I think that one's right around that number.
So obviously it wasn't anything to raise flags, or it wouldn't be on your program.
So the long range plan is really going to determine where we're going for the next 10 years. And what we're going to look at as far as the key metrics are capacity of the school, the aging condition of the building. We're also going to look at how energy efficient the buildings are. That's going to be a key metric to make sure that we're
Gotcha.
meeting all of our sustainability goals for the next upcoming decade. And then we're also going to be looking at the amount of farm students, free and reduced lunch students in the school, English language learners, and the number of special ed kids that attend.
Gotcha.
That way, we're going to provide equity as much as possible through this planning process.
And that comes out 2025.
We're going to start the process in FY 25. It'll really shape FY 27 and beyond for the next.
That's quite a ways down
Yeah.
the road.
Yeah,
What happens in the next 2 years?
so we'll be finishing out that Old Mill Master Plan,
Mhm.
wrapping up some of the last MGT study or long range planning projects that we had on the books before that.
Got
And
it.
then this will really shape that next 10
Gotcha.
years until
Gotcha.
2037.
Thank you.
Go real quick. You mentioned about adding 6 rooms to on the renovation project.
Mhm.
What does that do as far as factors when you're looking at school capacity as a percentage, 90%, 110%? Does adding 6 rooms impact a school significantly, or can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, adding 6 rooms will add capacity to that building fairly significantly. I think it's Cedar Hill neighborhood up in the park area that we believe is going to be producing some more kids that will be attending that particular school. Each classroom and addition project at an elementary school is between 20 and 23 kids. That's how state rated capacity is determined. So that's how we determine that at the elementary school level. When you get to the high school level, it's based on what the room is used for, how many teaching stations they believe that can fit in that room.
So that percentage changes then depending on elementary, middle school, high school.
Yeah, all of our state rated capacities are approved by the state of Maryland. So they'll review our calculations, make a determination whether we need to add, subtract, adjust room counts. And then that's how we determine capacity. But every time we do an addition, every time we replace the school, we submit an application for a renewal of SRC.
And just for the record, where would we be looking in the future for this surveys?
For
For the South County surveys, I suppose?
for redistricting.
Redistricting, I'm sorry.
So there'll be a number of press releases that come out. It'll be a similar web tool that we used in the past where you'll be able to go online, submit a survey, look up your address to see what options and what school you could be potentially rezoned to.
Thank you.
Okay, on one of the charts you talked about, balancing, to sustain capacity at different schools. What other factors go into determining, or are there specific factors that go into determining how you shift students? For example, I know you talked about the seniors. They have an option to stay where they are. But as you sort of shift these kids left and right across schools, are there other factors? Is it based on proximity or other things in terms of how you decide who goes where?
Yeah, there's a number of factors in the board policy and regulation that we try to use to determine, again, it's a balancing act between what's possible and what's actually being able to get done. One of the issues that any redistricting or any balancing act includes is where the population pockets are. So if all the kids are within 10-mile radius of the school, we're gonna have to peel off some of those kids, and they may be a little bit further from the other school than they were the original school. But it's really trying to balance that enrollment so that we can make sure that everyone's in the building, but in relocatables, which is a better learning environment.
Gotta be tough.
It's not an easy.
Are there any further questions from any SAC members?
I mean, I was gonna ask, the factors, I mean, I grew up in Norfolk and, one of the significant factors, in Norfolk was, the race balancing as far as making sure that the schools were diverse, because certain pockets in Norfolk were very heavily African-American, and if they just went by proximity, the schools would be 100% African-American. So I don't know if that's something that's considered in your.
That wasn't necessarily a factor that we looked at. What we looked at were I think there's 7 or 8 factors that are in the school regulation that determine what we can look at and what we should use as far as a tool for balancing.
Okay.
There's one other question from Dan, over Zoom. He asked, any idea what the redistricting will affect North County High School? Currently, it's estimated to be at 120%. So I'm curious how this will be affected.
It should drop below 100% or around 100%. I have to get the exact number for you as far as what we projected it to be, but those relocatables that we had out there at one point in time, we had around 20 portables out there. That was built to have swing space for the systemic project that we were doing with the renovation in the high school, but also for capacity. So yes, that should help that school.
And with the redistricting, all the schools are gonna be below 100%.
Yeah, 100 or below. Yeah.
There was talk in North County, the area, I think it's near the recycling plant in the north side of the county. And they were trying to redevelop that land into a school for a while. That was like a campaign promise from many positions ago. Do you know if there's any action on using that piece of land or a piece of land in North County for a new school?
No, not that I'm aware of. I'm not sure what property that is. I know.
We'll look it up and come back to you.
Okay.
Curtis Bay.
No,
Get
it
the
was,
edge of Baltimore.
it's near, I'm really bad with the streets.
Hammond's Lane and Bay.
Yes, thank
Oh,
you.
oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Different.
no,
Yeah, I know that was a campaign promise from our politicians a while ago, and it kind of just fizzled out, and they were trying to use that land for education purposes.
yeah, no, that land is not purchased for us.
Was it for a school or a park or both?
It was originally, the promise was for a school,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Are there
Thank you all.
any-
Oh,
Thank
sorry,
you.
one follow-up, one from Dan. Any truth to the rumors of converting Brooklyn Park Middle School back to a high school?
No, no, that's,
Okay.
Yeah, there's the parking there now.
yeah, you got the, Ripken
And
field.
there's a field, yeah, right in the field that's run, just been renovated.
Thank you.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. We're gonna, I just keep it moving, Mark, back to you.
Yep. So moving then on to the economic development portion, next slide then. Again, just kind of sharing some of the things that we've heard about from the public. Understanding that BWI is a big economic hub. Now, we can talk about that positively. We've also heard from the public that it can be a negative thing, knowing that the sounds, the truck traffic. But just for the purposes of this, this topic, obviously it is an economic hub. Lack of not even quality grocery stores, but just lack of grocery stores. We've heard about a couple grocery stores closing down. In other areas around the county, we hear people talk about, well, there aren't quality grocery stores. So I think the fact of that certain grocery stores are even closing down is a significant issue. And then looking at our employees, making sure that there's that opportunity for people to get around well. Eric, I see you nodding your head. I remember at the kickoff meeting, you said it's a challenge for some of your employees to get to Anne Arundel County. They have to live out of the county and some of the commutes are a little difficult and long. So thinking about, again, weaving all these issues together, how does transportation impact the economic development opportunities within the county? So again, not reading everyone, but you sort of get the sense that there are some assets within the region, and then there are also some challenges. One of those other challenges, next slide, is equity. Right, Jennifer, you just brought that up, is just comparing household income with the percentage of the white population on the right-hand side. So you see the darker the color, the higher the household income. For the first illustration, and then the second graphic is, again, the darker the color indicates that there's a higher percentage of a white population in that census block. So again, even though the county is relatively affluent, there are these pockets of poverty, and there are these correlations between household income and then the race of the census block. So again, something to keep in mind, those areas are primarily located in Pumphrey and Brooklyn Park area. So again, as we're talking about economic development strategies, are these some of the locations that we want to be more sensitive to and identify where there might be a greater opportunity for that economic development? Next slide. So we do have two programs among many. I'll just call out sustainable communities. This is a state designation that essentially provides programs to revitalize areas. The Brooklyn Park. So we do have 3 designated communities within the county: Brooklyn Park, Glen Burnie, Odenton, Severn. The Brooklyn Park designation was just renewed. And as part of that, it includes a variety of strategies on how to, again, revitalize that specific area there in the north. I can share that with you all. I looked back at the briefing paper and we didn't include that renewal application. So I can go ahead and share that with you all shortly so that you get a flavor of what that designation tries to achieve within these designated areas. Next slide. And then the next is the commercial revitalization area. Again, we have in this area, the Brooklyn Park, as well as then the Glen Burnie, just kind of fades a little bit into Region 1. It mostly includes the Cromwell Station and the shopping center there in Region 1. That lighter purple is the Glen Burnie, it's showing the sustainable communities again. Sorry, let me get an updated map then when I follow up with you all afterwards. But the commercial revitalization area really includes two opportunities, regulatory aspect where it allows higher densities as well as a greater flexibility of uses to again help spur redevelopment in some of these areas, as well as financial programs to help revitalize some of these areas. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan from Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation. And sorry, just give us 1 second while we swap slides here. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Oh. Sorry. It should be on that. Sorry, going back to the email. If you scroll up. Sorry, Lane. I'll resend it to you here. Or I'll share the screen. I'll blow that up for you in just a second here.
Mr. Don, what did you say your title was?
I'm the Director of Research and Program Development
Thank you.
for Anne Arundel Economic Development. And I'm here with our Chief Operating Officer, Wes McClure.
Okay. It's all yours, Jim.
Okay. Go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the commuter flows, the people coming in to work in your area, and where the people in your area in Region 1 go to work. And Region 1, this area right here is home to 62,528 primary jobs, and that's about 27% of all the jobs in the county. Next slide, please.
Oops. Sorry, there is a delay here. I apologize.
Okay, so this chart right here kind of shows you the number of workers that are coming in from outside the county, which is 59,743 to work here in Region 1. And then you have 19,449 residents of Region 1 that actually work outside the county. And 2,785 actually live and work here in Region 1. Let's see. And a total of 22,234 residents of Region 1 are employed. And this data all comes from the US Census Bureau. It's their on the map application, and it's a bunch of unemployment insurance information and surveys that's all combined into one data set that we're putting up here. It is a little dated. I just want to let you know this is from 2020, and we pulled this in August. Next slide, please. So where do Region 1 residents commute to? Well, the greatest percentage of workers in this area commute to Baltimore City, followed, and that's 17%. 6%, a little over 6% commute to Glen Burnie, almost 4.5% to Linthicum, 4.2% to Columbia, and then about 3% go all the way to DC from here. Next slide. The resident workforce by earnings of the 22,234 residents employed in primary jobs that not part-time, they're full-time jobs. 18.2% earn less than $1,250 per month. 25.3 earn between $1,251 and $3,333, which is about $40,000 a year. And then the vast majority, 56.5 earn more than $40,000 a year. Of the 4,045 residents that are making $1,250 per month or less, you see a large percentage of them are under 30% or 30 years old. About 38.5, about the same number, are between 30 and 54, and 22.9 or 55 and older. The majority of them are female, and the majority of the races are 66% are white, 22.2% black, 7.6% Hispanic. And the top 5 industries for employment for people making these wages, most of them are accommodations and food services. You have a lot of hotels in this area, especially around BWI. There's about 47 hotels around this area. Retail, trade, healthcare and social assistance, administration and support, waste management and remediation. That's your admin jobs, and then transportation and warehousing. Of the 5,636 residents that are making in that middle range, between $1,251 and $3,333 per month, you see that the majority of them, 47.1, are between 30 and 54, the prime working ages. The majority are female, and the races are about the same. Hispanics about the same, just a little bit more. And the top 5 industries for employment in this category, 18.3% retail, trade, healthcare and social assistance, administration and support, transportation, warehouse, and also accommodation and food services. And of those making more than $40,000 a year, you have about 12,000, the majority of the residents of this area. And it's the vast majority of them are in that prime working age, about 61% of them, 74% white, 18.9% black, and then you have 5.6% Hispanic, and you have more men making this wage than you do women. The top 5 industries for employment for that wage level: professional, scientific, and technical services. Those are kind of your like tech jobs, lawyers, professionals, and I guess scientific research and development, those kind of jobs, which you see a lot, around the west side of Region 1, closer to Fort Meade, and around BWI. Also public administration, healthcare and social services, construction and manufacturing. Job concentrations, this kind of shows where the jobs are located here in Region 1. The vast majority of them are surrounding BWI. You have north of Grumman there with probably about 9,800 jobs there. The hotel district, and then you have quite a few workers up at the Coast Guard yard in Curtis Bay. I think they have 500 up there. Next slide. Now, where are Region 1 workers coming from? Those that are coming in to work in your region, the vast majority, 13.8% are coming from Baltimore City, 4.5% from Glen Burnie. You've got 2.8% from Severn, and then you have Columbia, quite a few places in Howard County and Baltimore. Now the jobs by the NAICS, which is the North American Industry Classification System. Their industry sectors, the most prominent, the 5 top prominent
jobs here are manufacturing, transportation and warehousing, professional, scientific and technical services, constructions, and admin support, and waste management and remediation. Now, the growth levels, the 10-year trends for these, we have seen that manufacturing started off in 2011 very, very high, and then just kind of went downhill for a little while, and then it's been increasing, and a lot more so, we know, from 2020 on. But also transportation and warehousing, that kind of has skyrocketed more in recent years, with an increase of 199% over the 10-year period. Construction's also increased pretty significantly at 71%, and the other two are doing quite well too. Okay, the jobs in Region 1, 36% are held by women. 54.4% are held by workers in that prime age of 30 to 54. Almost 65% are earning more than the 3,333 per month. And this also more of the demographics of all the workers here. Almost 38% are held by non-white workers. 5.8% are held by Hispanic or Latino workers, and almost 25% have a educational attainment of a bachelor's degree or. Now I'm going to move into the commercial real estate market. You have this data right here is all presented by or is brought to us by CoStar, and CoStar, these are the properties that they've identified. The ones in gray on the map are the ones that are occupied. The ones in blue are the ones that might have some available space that they might be occupied and be for lease or renting in the future. But we have CoStar identified the real estate market as having 795 commercial properties that take up 31.6 million square feet of property. Next slide. Retail, 231 properties in this region, which take up 2.3 million square feet. The vacancy rate in this area is for retail is when I pulled this in August, was 7.2%. It's a little higher than our average on the countywide. Countywide, I think we're right around 5%, or 4.4 was the actual figure. Next slide. Office property, we have 152 properties identified by CoStar, 5.4 million square feet, and a vacancy rate of 12.1%, which is a lot higher than the rest of the county. The rest of the county averages right now about 6.8% for office. But it is below what we see in some of the other jurisdictions like Baltimore City. The closer you get to the city, but for office, the higher the vacancy rate it seems. For industrial, you have 256 properties here in this region, which is 17.7 million square feet and a 6.5% vacancy rate, which is just a little higher than the average of 4.2 for the county. And flex properties. Now, flex properties, if you're not familiar, it's kind of a warehouse in the back, retail in the front. You'll see a lot of those where you have a nice entrance in the front, and then in the back, there's a loading bay. But there's 147 properties in this region and 6.1 million square feet. And the vacancy rate for flex is currently in August was at 7.8%. And the average for the county is about 5.7%. Now, Mark had mentioned to you on his slide earlier about the commercial revitalization districts. Here in Region 1, you have 3 different commercial revitalization districts, and this kind of shows you where they are. One's up in Brooklyn Park, and then you have one out by past Curtis Bay, but Pasadena area, and then the other one on the kind of just north of Cromwell. Next up, economic drivers for Region 1. Well, the main economic driver for this region is obviously, it's going to be on the next slide. Baltimore Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport. They had last year 22.8 commercial passengers come through. They have over 10,000 badged employees. A little over 5,000 of those are from Southwest Airlines. That's a major hub. They take up about upper 60s for percentage of flights out of BWI. Let's see. And a lot of cargo goes through BWI. In fact, 565 million pounds of cargo passed through BWI in 2022. And that was, that's more than any other airport around the Washington area. And then we have another economic driver, that is the U.S. Coast Guard yard at Curtis Bay, which is pretty significant for the Coast Guard. It's their only basically shipyard and their largest facility for shipbuilding anywhere in the country. It supports over 2,200 Coast Guard employees in Baltimore and Anne Arundel County. Now, some of those Coast Guard employees work downtown in the city, but they split the time between there, and we have over 500, I guess, other non-Coast Guard jobs supporting those, building the ships, all the different manufacturing jobs and technical or trade jobs that are up there, and there's some real neat internship programs that are going up there. And then Brandon Woods, Wes will go into a little further, but Best Buy up there, you have Amazon has a big space up there, and they're building there's another building being built up there. Any questions for me before I turn it over to my counterpart?
Yeah, lots.
Okay.
Can we go back to, back, can we go back to, where you talked about manufacturing? Why, okay, right there, why did it decrease 7%? But you said it's coming back, and what are we making? Who are the manufacturers here?
I would suspect, manufacturing, I think in the state has seen a decrease. I suspect that jump back up is probably related to Northrop Grumman and their operation. I know that they've been expanding and doing a lot more of that. So I suspect that those numbers are probably skewed by that operation they have.
And that's it?
What's that?
And that's it? Just Northrop Grumman?
There's been a few other ones in the area as well, but I think that those numbers are probably skewed largely to their expansion in Northrop.
So warehousing, you said, had a pretty significant vacancy rate. I'm a retired commercial contractor, but you say it's increased 199%. So share with me how that works out. How did it increase, but it still has a high vacancy rate? Transportation and warehouse.
Well, this is job growth. So it's
just job.
Yeah, it's not the.
No, but
space.
it's still parallels. You can't have
Well,
empty warehouses
You have
and increase jobs.
a lot of companies that are supporting like Trade Point Atlantic and, located in this area.
Well, this region especially has compared to the other regions of this planning process, has far and away the most industrial warehouse space. Compared to the other regions, this part of the county.
Okay.
The sector as a whole is done very well. It's the vacancy rates have decreased prior to COVID. I mean, the trend of industrial space being more and more desirable has
Yeah.
been happening pre-COVID. When COVID
I'm
happened,
with you.
that trend accelerated tremendously because what everybody do, everybody started buying stuff
Yeah,
at home
Yeah.
online, and it's all coming from warehouses like this.
okay.
So especially in 2020, warehouse market took off. People have said it's cooling off. It is cooling off a bit. If you compare it to 2020, 2021, a big driver of that for a while was Amazon. Amazon was trying to expand and get as much warehouse space as they could because they saw what was
Right.
happening at the time, and they were like,
Right.
we need to be able to keep up with this demand. So they were going out and acquiring whatever they can get their hands on. They've since scaled back.
Yes,
They've consolidated a few of their facilities here in the county since then. But overall, industrial space as a whole in the county is, the vacancy is very, very low.
okay, so just to keep on that discussion track. Glen Burnie, Route 2, in another side further down, we all know is a mess. This room knows. So many of the stores are closed. Marley Station Mall is a mess. So a thought might be just to put in our pocket. Is there a way to look at some of those empty stores and use some of that space as storage? And I'll leave it there. Just a
I mean, if we're talking about Marley Station in particular.
no, it's,
Just in general.
that is a statement for this room to think about as we move forward. It's just a thought, not something we saw today.
I mean, that's an interesting thought. I mean, we don't have a lot of industrial space.
Left.
Left
I
to
know.
develop. So, you know, I don't want to advocate, against adding additional industrial space, especially for a market that's doing so well, right, compared to especially the retail.
Well, especially if you can put lipstick on.
Well,
I mean, that comes with other challenges. If you're gonna use Marley Station as storage, and you have trucks going through Marley Station to bring stuff to the storage and to.
I feel you.
And the neighborhoods
Just,
near there.
it's just an
I mean,
idea.
they've already
Yeah.
started using it.
Yeah,
They
but
have
I
like a bunch
mean,
of white trucks sitting in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Marley Station, I don't think is even in this region, but looking at the region, like Brooklyn Park, for
Yeah.
instance, it would be nice to like have the 17% increase move further right. Like I see it happening for
Exactly.
manufacturing technology.
Exactly,
Professional, scientific and technical services,
yes.
seeing some of those
Yeah.
types of jobs move to the areas that are economically disadvantaged in the past. And
Amen.
I know one of the corridors that you mentioned before is the Ritchie Highway corridor
Mhm.
for the economic incentive. I think the name of it,
Commercial revitalization.
commercial revitalization.
Yeah,
Instead of bringing in more of those jobs that don't produce high incomes, like retail, it'd be
right.
nice to see how to take some of that space and that effort to revitalize that area to bring in those jobs, because you're sandwiched between the commuters from Baltimore and the hub, which is BWI, and then further down, Port Meade.
But you have people that live in the area, that those, I don't know. They want to see nice things in the area. They want to
Mhm.
see a nice grocery store.
Mhm. Office
the-
building, whatever.
An office building does not, does not benefit, driving by an office building doesn't really, besides the fact that it looks nicer than what's there right now.
Well, when you're
Because
talking.
You gotta bring the next.
The doctor's office.
Right,
Office building for it.
right, right.
Be careful what you wish for too.
Yeah,
I live in Crofton. and
but remember, this group is all about turning ideas.
Yes.
There's no such thing as a bad idea, we just bring them together.
In regards to the, I found your division of the income curious. I'm not sure what the,
That's the Census Bureau.
okay,
They divide it by those categories and that's how they.
it seems, especially because, above 40,000 that's barely affording rent in this
No,
area. Doesn't really tell us much.
It's,
Okay.
it's not a lot. It's to drill
They
down
need to
to,
upgrade their numbers.
well, and to drill down to an area. Or a region like this, the commuter flows, you really, it's hard to do that. And that's kind of like the added stuff that comes in with. Who's coming in and out of your area.
And the numbers are super old.
2020 is not that important.
3 years. Jonathan, Eric,
Yes.
a question for you.
Sure.
Medical office spaces, I didn't see that in your presentation. Looking at how we use land and how we develop, and make this an attractive place to live, et cetera, and also about the aging population. Is there any data that you would have that you could provide to Mark that we could get about medical office space and what's available in this region region one and, you know, what's existing, and what's available?
CoStar provides some.
And
Yeah, it's not the most accurate though. I mean, it's tough to define medical office space because sometimes we'll have buildings that are general office space and also medical office space. I mean, the biggest difference is the parking ratio, the parking requirements for medical. I would say just generally in this region, I mean, there's a lot of, when you look at where the medical office space is in the county, obviously it's around the two major hospitals, right? In Luminous and Annapolis and Farmer Washington Medical Center in Glen Burnie, which is just outside this region. Typically around those areas, you'll see a lot of medical office to support those hospital systems. I know there's also a little bit up in like the Airport Square area, which is in this region. There's some medical office up that way. Just in general, medical office seems to do well. It doesn't really, it's not affected obviously by people teleworking, unlike, general office buildings. People have to come to the office to see the doctor and have procedures done and things like that. So, medical office as a whole, typically does pretty well through the county and certainly this region.
Is there any like effort, I mean, I know we don't have 12%, I think 12.1% for office vacancy rates. I know Baltimore City and DC, they're doing the whole changeover from office to conversion to residential because the housing problem that we have.
Well,
Are there
and
any
they're trying to
effort-
bring remote workers back.
Yeah, they're trying to.
That's the biggest
There's
driver.
a balance, but no one wants to go to a city that's empty, right?
Yeah.
So having 12% office vacancy rates, it's like a ghost town. Like I go on Ritchie Highway, there's an office on the right, the same, well, quasi empty, and you have the empty over here. So are there any projects to lower that vacancy rate through that conversion?
I'd say we haven't seen the trend of converting office space to residential, like in the big cities.
Yeah,
What I can say is we are seeing a trend of redeveloping under utilized office space. And right here is a great example of that, right? Airport Square, there's a huge concentration of office space, aging office space. We've seen Copt, who owns a lot of the office buildings in Airport Square, several years ago, redeveloped one of the office buildings to do the restaurant park up there, right? It was forever, it was people who, there's a lot of people in this room who work in this general corridor, right? There's nowhere to go for lunch, there's limited lunch options, there's all these office buildings, but there's no lunch options. So that was a really successful conversion of an old office building, turning that into, it was a Chick-fil-A and a Dunkin' and a Hibachi Quick Serve and a, Glory and all that stuff. So that was a great example of taking an underutilized vacant office building and that directly across the street from that on the corner of, with Energy Road and, Elkridge Landing, there's a big empty office
Yeah.
building that's gonna go through the same process of being converted into retail. So I think we're seeing instead of office to residential, and there's a lot of reasons for that. One, zoning wouldn't really, work out well for office to residential. We are seeing a lot of office to retail. Or in other areas of the county as well, office to mixed use.
and I promise last question. So I'd be interested to know, like, I saw 3% of people that live in this region are going to DC, right? So what is the county's approach to reaching the DC audience, right? Because I think a lot of the issues that we face with disinvestment and these low wage paying jobs can be kind of brought to light by having new blood come into the area, right? So people, it looks like they're using Region 1 as a base to live, and they're working in DC. So what is like the county's outreach to reach that audience that is willing to make that hour drive or train ride or whatever to DC?
Well, I mean, a lot of it's the jobs that are being offered down in DC that aren't offered here. You have a lot of federal jobs. You have a lot, I mean, it's the nation's capital. There are a lot of different government jobs down there. A lot of people work down there. They don't mind hopping on the MARC train and heading down there and coming back.
How do we get like, what is the county's plan to continue that message, like to be the bullhorn? Like, it seems like we're on the right track because we got 3%. The word is out there. But are there any, what are the efforts that we're taking to make that more vocal? Like, hey, Region 1 is open for business, like you live here, you can commute, you have the MARC train, we have different options for you. Well, what are we doing to reach that audience? I know Baltimore has been the focal point that we're so close to it.
Yeah.
It seems like there's interest from the other market as well.
just so I'm on the same page, are you saying, how do we get those people to move here?
Like,
Or
how do
just-
we amplify and show Region One as an option for people in DC to come and live here and invest here?
Well, I mean, I put out a migration report last year that showed, based on IRS data, the vast majority of the people coming into Anne Arundel County are coming from Prince George's County. They're moving away from the city, moving here. And the vast majority of the people that are leaving here are going to Florida, South Carolina. So we have a lot of people.
Texas.
Well,
Based on your traffic.
Sorry.
reports, like, most of the traffic is coming into this corridor from a work perspective, right? You had almost 50,000 some trips coming in from outside of Region One to work, is that right? It's like your
Yeah.
second slide.
Yeah.
right?
yeah, you have,
So it seems like people are coming into work, but they're not living here and
Yeah.
working here, right?
Is that
Maybe
what
that's
you're
kind of getting at.
Yeah, how do we
what you're
spread the word, like,
identifying.
live here, you know, like, you're working and doing things here, but live here as well. And
Right, so that's that center number, right? The 2785 is.
yeah, those are the ones that live and
That
work.
live
here.
and work, right? The vast majority of people are driving from out of the region to work here, right? So
And
it's an
Northrop
employment.
Grumman's here, BWI is here, and I believe Region One also touches a little tiny bit of, Fort Meade as well, a little tiny bit, the northern part of it. So I mean, we have the jobs here, like, how do we get people to live here, you know?
I mean, I think there's generally a housing shortage around.
And that's just it. I mean, it's hard to find a place to live.
I would think age plays into that too. Sure. I mean, if you look at the county, particularly this north part of the county, you're gonna find there's an older population than some other areas.
There is.
So, you know.
Do they have the means to
because
move?
Really 28%, there are 2,800 that live and work here. And everybody else is transitioning in and out. I think if you look at the demographics of who's retired and still living here, you're gonna find that number significant in this area.
Yeah. So I speak to as someone who, moved here, decided to move here. I worked here in Baltimore, and I was looking for places to live. I didn't want to live in Baltimore, but I was looking for an easy commute into Baltimore. And here, you know, I was like, oh, 15-minute commute into Baltimore. But I can say,
What
you
year
know,
was that?
that was in, I mean, it was in the South, I was in, UMMC, so
Right,
that's why I was only 15-minute commute. But anyways, and when I'm on Reddit and I hear people talk about where to live in Maryland, right? And I can say Anne Arundel County is not on the list of places that people recommend. Columbia
Yeah.
is the hot one, and Laurel and maybe Odenton. And I think if they mention Anne Arundel County, Odenton's the one I mentioned. I think that, and that's what I think we're here to try to repair. We're here to revitalize the region, because I think the proximity to Baltimore is our biggest strength.
And weakness.
I went to the Ravens game this weekend,
It's a balance.
and it normally would have taken me 15 minutes to get there, but the light rail wasn't running, so it took me a lot longer. But normally, that would have been a 15-minute ride in the light rail, and you can't beat that, right? So I think that there's a lot of strengths in this area. Even if you don't work here, but I agree that definitely the people that are coming here to work, you know, we should make it attractive to live here. And I think there's certainly a lot of reasons why it's not right now. The vacancy rate for retail, the lack of good grocery store options. I have to go to Columbia to get a Trader Joe's.
We go to a lot of these different regions and everybody wants a Trader Joe's.
The Amazon Fresh didn't open. So I think that's what I came on this committee to do, was make it the place that, you know, other people will want to come here.
And those are the suggestions and the recommendations that you all are making as a group. Volunteer your time, these late nights to come out here and do that. And so I want to thank you personally for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
These are observers allowed to speak, or that's for another time?
Yeah, we'll be taking,
Okay.
in the end, if we have time, we will. Thank you for asking.
Any more?
Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay.
Thank you.
so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Oh, right into the fire.
All right,
Good timing. Mark.
Right, so sort of coming on the heels of, I think that was a great discussion. I think you were
Great
sort of
discussion.
thinking about connecting
Yeah.
some of these dots of, right, there's a lot of people coming to this area, but they're not living here. And that has an impact on our transportation networks, how do we better connect people? And so if I could springboard off of your all as an idea about how do we create those opportunities for people to potentially live here, or more economic development opportunities, some, looking at maybe some of the professional offices. And I know warehousing, flex space is always big, and maybe that is necessary given, our location here. So let's jump into looking at some of these, sites within Region 1 where there is an opportunity. Maybe not necessarily tomorrow, but maybe in 20 years where there is, where it can be redeveloped into a high quality of life, a place to live. So I think Wes, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, and I think, I'll just kind of give some context and background to some of these sites that we talk about. And help you, again, I think just help the discussion, with this group and hear from you guys of what you'd want to see in each of these sites. But I do want to preface it, and I've been doing this with other regions as well. I want to preface the conversation by saying that, a lot of these sites that we talk about are privately owned sites, right? They're owned by a private landowner, so, you know, there's not a ton that we can do to force their hand to do stuff. So just keep that in mind that we're talking about, sites that are owned by private entities. The other thing I want to keep in mind is that, for a lot of these sites, it's going to take somebody to come in for redevelopment. It's going to take millions and millions of dollars to come in and acquire the property, rehab the property, redevelop the property, and build something new. And I think when we're coming up with ideas of what could be, just keep in mind that whoever's doing that and making that investment is going to want to see a return on that money. So suggesting like we can redevelop this into like a dog park or something like that. Okay. Might not be feasible. So just kind of keep that in mind when we're coming up with ideas for different sites.
Fair enough.
This first one, Cromwell Station, this is a great segue into the light rail not running. There was a report that was, a study that was conducted by the Greater Washington Partnership, and they identified 3 transit-oriented development sites in Anne Arundel County. One was Odenton, which is underway currently. They're planning for a parking garage to be constructed as part of hopefully a mixed-use development. The second one was Laurel, the Laurel racetrack and the Laurel station there. And the third was the Cromwell light rail station. So this is obviously owned by the state. It's pretty underutilized most of the time, with the exception of game days, which is how I get to the game. I think this station into the game. So, you know, there's potential to use that large parking lot for transit-oriented development. You know, talking about how do we make it traffic meet cars off the road. Transit-oriented development is a great way to do that, where it makes sense, and this is certainly one that has some potential. So interested to hear your thoughts on this site.
Are most folks familiar with this site? And what are some general, I mean, just starting out maybe with some general opinions about it in its current state? And then obviously, what is your vision for this area? Thinking about what we were just hearing about, some of the statistics.
It's got a bad rap.
Oh, this deserved.
This is over by House of Profits, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the most traffic I see over there, so I use that store regularly. And,
Which start?
House Tropics.
Oh,
And
yeah.
people actually park and wait for it to open.
Really?
So,
Really?
because they don't open till 10. But anyhow, so I think
I know they don't.
that leads the most traffic in over there, honestly. And then once we're over there, we might hit a couple of those other little stores over there. I miss the giant that was over there personally.
That.
Since I was a child, I used that area to commute into the city, just for recreational purposes, to go downtown. That was the station we always went to and got dropped off at and came back from. And it's sad. It's really sad right now. It's not even seems too safe if you do get off over there. And you're waiting for something, or you need to go sit down somewhere while you're, there's really not that option. You're standing in the cold or just out somewhere, with no protection. So, I think that's one of the main concerns. I've seen it done. I've seen the manager, holding down the McDonald's over there, with the loitering. I've seen it be possible. We need those type of employees. We need those type of, areas in that area to, enjoy that.
I've only driven through that area. I mean, I went to Rita's once or twice, which is there, but I think it's a really powerful area, since you have the freeway right there to get on, to get access to the city. You have Lyra, obviously, the airport's not that far from there, and then you have Main Street, because you have Arrow 4 going down, you can walk straight down to Main Street, you have restaurants and stuff, so looking at a place to live, I would have liked to have seen more apartment mixed-use townhomes in this area, because right now, above number 1, those are all single-family homes, and below number 2 is all single-family homes. So there was nowhere for me to really live and fit into this part. But I think everyone is driving to this place to get to another place. It's not a place that you are at, right? Similar to what the other gentleman talked about earlier. No one's here, which gives those issues, right? But you're connected to the parks. There's a park down the street from here. There's a bike trails here. So I think this particular area has a lot to offer. It just needs to be more home. It needs to be a more home feel, and that needs to be homes there.
I want to point out also, I think this is in this region, if not said outside, that this area right here, number 5, potential mixed use development. So this is actually a county owned site. There's an old back here, actually. The county's identified this as surplus and is looking to redevelop it, probably mixed use. So talking about residential, so that'll definitely be a component of this. Probably mixed income residential, in addition to some definitely retail office and whatever else goes there, but we'll hopefully take that out for RFP early next year.
And that goes along with the Glen Burnie Town Center plan too. So
Yeah,
town
center,
center,
down the street.
so you'd be able to have that connectivity to the, I don't want to say Old Town Glen Burnie, but like downtown Glen Burnie, but also to get out and get to work.
And part of the success of Glen Burnie Town Center, which we're very much focused on and working diligently on, is connecting the town center to 7409 BNA, which is the county property we just referenced, and connecting that property to the light rail station, right? Connectivity with sidewalks, because right now it's not that walkable. I mean, you could do it, but you kind of have to live a little dangerously in some parts. So I think making it easier for pedestrian traffic to get from there to the town center is super important. It's something that we have worked on.
Also, just to comment on the housing part, a lot of that's just driven by zoning. So obviously, the community could want housing there, but it's just not legally possible to build housing there. So, the county's been working on a few legislative efforts to add some flexibility for redevelopment, which could ultimately provide that flexibility and allow some housing to be built. So those are some of the tools that we can probably talk about.
I mean, isn't that what's going on with that, the rezoning application?
The redevelopment
Or-
bill?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
And right, so is sort of zooming back out is tonight, we're talking high level concepts about what types of uses you might want to see, what type of density you want to see at these places. And then taking together all our conversations, the environment, housing next month, transportation, economic development today, will then feed into those specific conversations we'll have in the springtime, where it's like, right, we're talking about, would it be nice for the area number 1 to be mixed use? Great, so what type of zoning district is most appropriate for that, and would you all recommend that in the update to the zoning map? So So again, thinking high level here tonight and for the next 1 or 2 meetings, and then we get more specific base and taking all these conversations together.
I was gonna say, I run past this, intersection over where Cromwell's at, where the connector is, where the trail is, with my dog, like, I don't know, a couple times a week. And it's sketch over there. Sometimes we find things that, people leave there, you know, there's a bench over there and I've seen people sleeping over there once or twice. So, but I see people riding their bikes, you know, cyclists and stuff, and they just ride on by. So I think that that's a real, having development in that area that's accessible to people is a real opportunity for people to stop there on a nice day. There, a lot of times I see families or groups, you know, from the BWI trail. Because BWI trail is nice, but it really doesn't have a lot of places to stop and like have an ice cream or, you know, it's got places to stop or like, not for people like the casual rider to actually enjoy their time there. So I think that having that where you actually can have it, because BWI is limited by the airport and everything what they can have there. I think that could be definitely a boon. I mean, it's got the possibility to have that there right now, but it doesn't.
So that's a great point to take advantage of the trail. And I mentioned, you know, making sure that it's connected from the light rail down to Glenbury Town Center.
Yeah.
We have a big effort right now to make sure that exactly what you described, right? Having the tenants at Glenbury Town Center be able to capture that market of people coming off the trail, the walkers, the bikers, coming off that trail for a cup of coffee or coming off the trail for a smoothie. You know, there's a great example in Silver Park of restaurants and coffee shops.
Yeah.
That the trail runs right behind, and there's so much traffic that comes off the trail that serves those commercial tenants. So it's an excellent point to make, to take advantage of that trail and make it and increase the connectivity through the town center and through the library station.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, this is an interesting area. There's a game store in there.
Yes,
And
it's very well.
it's doing really, you go there late at night, it's amazing the number of people, the place is packed. With young people in there playing board games and things like that, it's pretty interesting. But there were also historically challenges with this area because was fairly large homeless community in the woods there. Yeah, and that offered some people didn't feel comfortable being in that area because that homeless community and the police have done a lot of things to try to move them out. It goes back and forth. And that makes it difficult, challenging.
Where specifically are you talking?
The homeless communities, there's that,
Yeah.
We're around 5-ish area, and
Around
I'm into those woods up towards the flea market.
yeah, behind the gas station, you can actually, see it sometimes, you see those
Oh, yeah,
types
yeah.
of things. And it just makes it tough.
I don't know who I'm addressing this question to, but, is there a, requirement for green space? Should like that area be developed into some sort of residential?
There are requirements, and certainly this is what we're talking about this evening is, are there certain things you'd like to see? These requirements bumped up more for certain areas. I've been hearing more about community amenities or having a place for people to go and congregate. And that makes sense probably in sort of just on the outskirts there of the Glenbury Town Center, right? We're still part of it, so.
If you build up, you know, apartments or things like that, wherever there's high density concentration of people, I really feel like it's a mental health benefit to have, exit space. To be able to regroup, to, just chill out, you know, as part of a requirement, you know, it's vital. Especially with things like domestic violence. I mean, these are just full talks, you know, full circle and just how things should be.
Yeah.
So there's a great proposal, a previous proposal for this site, that utilized, the parcel actually goes way back here. It's all green space.
but one of the proposals actually, proposed a trail that kind of went through this green space here and obviously, preserved all this green space as well. So I'm hopeful that we can incorporate that in that.
Feels better.
Now, he's,
And what type of intensity
It's already
or
gone. It's now,
dense?
storage cube or whatever, warehouse type thing for us, self-storage. But if you back the history of that corner, dot 3 in the red was listed as, what do you got, industrial? That was actually served by the train. That was a freight train as well as a passenger train that ran on the B&A Trail, which is now obviously bikes and this kind of stuff. But it used to be, and well, part of it's light rail, but the light rail kind of dead ends there. But it used to go all the way down to Annapolis. So it went through Glen Burnie with the train and everything else. The blue number 1 over there was baseball fields. That was a great big, baseball fields,
yeah.
baseball fields and stuff like that. So it's been a number of things over the years. The light rail has drastically changed a lot of it. The services and the companies that are in the number 3 area have changed because they're now no longer able to be served by the trains. So they've turned into more trucking instead of rail. Obviously, the shopping center went in, it had this great big heyday. It came in the mid, probably late 80s or maybe early 90s when it opened. And it's gone through several transitions. And like I said, that green space right there along 5, where the intersection is, that's now
The storage.
storage facility
Yeah.
that literally was just built.
Yeah.
So there has been big changes in that area over the years.
I think you were asking like, what
The density.
density?
Yeah, intensity, like what's the scale? Are you thinking 2 to 3 stories? In this area, if you're leaning more towards mixed use, are you leaning more towards a 5 to 6 story?
I think
Any
five to six,
preliminary thoughts?
simply because,
Yeah.
I mean,
Why not?
yeah, I mean, you have the transit there, so people won't be taking advantage, hopefully, of the roads as much. You don't have to worry about as much of that impact. You have like a lot of amenities here, and most people will hope, yeah, I would say 5 to 6. I don't know, I disagree with me on that.
And I think
I mean, I understand it. I mean, I do.
and I think Wes or Jonathan, I think you had mentioned is, it's gotta make sense financially, right? Is for you to redevelop this space. So move on to the next
Well, they
slide,
were
if
in the
you don't mind,
County
Erica.
Story building next to them.
Just to give you some inspiration too, is, you may see these examples throughout the United States where you have these old strip malls, and then over time, with some vision, they slowly become utilized to a higher and better use. So for example, you might have this 3 or 4 story apartment building where you might still have some retail on the bottom floor, and then 3 stories of residential. And
that's
again,
all
you know,
Bethesda, that's all Bethesda, and they're
Right.
doing great.
You see them along the Laurel Route 1 corridor,
Right.
mixed use like
Right.
that.
Traffic on the road.
And there's been a lot of development.
Mhm.
And that's how you get Trader Joe's.
From the
It's a state TOD designation. Because I think it is TOD.
They're working on the state designation for it, or for TOD. That's currently in the
Yeah,
works.
I think I would favor, yeah, I mean, it's 4 stories, that's 4 stories, but I don't think I think that's as high as, I
It
think.
really depends on the density, I would think, and the amount of what are the unit sizes, you know what I mean? I'm all for mixed use, I mean, I lived in Philly
Me
for a
too.
brief stint, and I went downstairs and went nowhere. Well, unless I wanted to go somewhere, but we had shopping in our building.
Right.
At the bottom of the building.
And
And
that's
as you age or have kids or anything like that, I mean, that's gonna be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we're talking about like kind of changing the character of the area, by putting in like, I don't know, higher rise buildings.
And it gives you more accountability to your neighborhood.
Exactly.
And to your stores and your business.
Yeah, the county zone.
And your
Sorry?
developer makes money.
Yeah.
Developer makes
Yeah, and again, just thinking about how that might then support the light rail. So let's move on. We've got a couple more examples and I want to give you all some time to identify any other areas within Region 1 that might be right for redevelopment. Wes, do you want to give an overview of the Army Depot site?
This is a good one, our Depot site. This is a site that's owned by, the feds. It has a very long history, used to obviously be, an army barracks. There's still some existing uses down here by the waterfront. I'm not sure exactly what they do there, so they raise the flag up every morning. But obviously it's a very, very large 460 acre, industrially zoned, very underutilized, rail served, water served, great access to 695. It's a great site. It actually used to be part of, what's now, Bay Meadow Business Park, but it was separate. This was carved out years ago. So obviously there's a ton of potential here. There's been a lot of interest in trying to pry this away from the feds. There's some remediation that has to happen here before the feds surplus it. They've been doing some studies and trying to figure out exactly what kind of contamination there is. And this is back when the Army would just, you know, if you have to dispose of stuff, you just go over the hill and throw it over the hill. So there's a few spots on here that might have some issues. So the plan hopefully is for the feds to surplus it, remediate it, and then turn it over to private development. For context, the county has some sports facilities here, prisons up here.
A what? A what?
Prison.
The prison, yeah, the prison.
Wait,
over there.
and where? You're
This
over
ordinance road
there.
over here.
I can't see where
Sorry.
you, I'm so sorry. Where do you?
One van away.
Ordinance Road?
Right.
Ordinance
Where
Road
the
is
Lowe's,
right here.
not
Oh, right
Lowe's,
there.
So the Home Depot's across the street here.
Okay, so wait, where's the prison?
Back there,
Right.
that thing.
Right there.
Yeah.
And behind it are sports? I thought that was an army.
So these are the county-owned sports facilities right here.
Okay,
And then this is the federally owned property that we're talking about. And you can
Would-
see it's served by rail.
okay. What do you think the timeline is on that? 10 years, 20? You're
Uh,
laughing.
I'm laughing
Laughing.
I'm laughing because I've been
It's okay.
I've been at this for over 10 years now, trying to shake this thing free. And every time we call the GSA, they say, oh, you know, we think we're almost done with the study. Probably in 2 years, we'll be able to surplus it. And then 2 years later, we call them and they say, 2 more years, we think that will be done. And this is going on and on and on. So I can say that there's been a lot of interest in this site recently, and a little bit of activity to try to shake things up.
So I'm so sorry to interrupt. Do you talk to GSA PBS or just GSA?
GSA, the real estate folks at GSA who are in charge of surplusing this.
Okay, but GSA has PBS.
Right.
Who handles real estate.
I don't know it's a group out of Atlanta that handles this region.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know if that's,
If
That's the group
if
you're
it's
talking
surplus, how is it acquired by the county? Like,
That's actually.
but it might not necessarily be acquired by the county. It could be acquired, it could go out to bid to private developers. I know that previously there was a proposal for the state to potentially acquire this property.
So we wouldn't get a priority, it would just,
We could, the county could potentially, if it went through the surplus process,
right,
could potentially acquire it, but
and that would be financially, we'd purchase it.
I don't know, it depends on the terms, if we give it away or
I
what.
got you, I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah. Most likely, this is gonna go to a private developer for some sort of a development. Keep in mind, it's zoned industrial, I believe it's zoned W3, I think, which is the highest industrial use currently, so.
What's our mediation status and who's responsible? Or
They're still trying to figure out what kind of remediation has to be done. They would like to have the site remediated before they transfer it. I think in order to speed up the process, I think that there'd be a lot of interest
for whoever acquires it to say, hey, let's move this along. We'll take on the remediation, just let's go. That's kind of where the holdup is
The
right now.
entire parcel requires remediation.
Not the entire parcel, but just parts of it.
Okay. For the ordinance and.
Where's the Baltimore boundary?
Baltimore boundary is right
Above the highway,
here-ish, north of here.
Yeah, it looks
This is
like
the Coast Guard yard, for context, this is the Coast Guard yard over here.
where the parcel line, I think, on the upper right-hand
Right here.
corner.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh, yeah, it's a
So
good,
are those-
So I think
I'll
that's
leave it,
it.
boy. Yeah, so north of here is the city line.
To tell.
Okay, so
West
those
is
businesses
W
are
two,
now-
not W3.
W2,
So the ones, north along the water are W3.
These are W3,
Yeah.
this is
the site
W2. Still very, very good industrial. So curious, the other benefit to this site, right, is there's no residential neighbors other than the residential folks over at the prison.
I can't complain.
But they're not here tonight, so it is nice to not have, you're not gonna bother any residential property here as well.
Is the interest in industrial then?
Is there interest? Yeah, the
Is that what
interest-
the interest has been for industrial?
We've seen, over the years, I mentioned there was at one point in time, the state was interested in sort of expanding like their port facilities, so building like, things that
Oh,
would
of
support the
course.
port here. We've seen some mixed use that included some residential, but it also included some industrial and some other stuff. And then we've also seen some just clear, warehouse industrial type. And when I say industrial, I mean like warehouse distribution type uses. So it's been kind of a mix, but I think it's probably gonna end up, going towards the more warehouse. It's got the zoning, it's surrounded by other, industrial, warehouse zoning uses. And like I said, there's certainly a demand for that, in this corridor, and it's in a place, again, that's not gonna bother, any of the residential property.
And that'll increase jobs.
I say I kayaked over there before, because there's a launch on the other side of the river, Sully Cove. And it's very nice, because there's not a bunch of warehouses there. If there's a bunch of warehouses there, it will not be as nice to kayak there. Or a bunch of construction.
Well, that's partly in Woodbury, isn't it?
Yes.
So there's all kind of requirements along the
Yeah.
water that didn't exist when this was built, that they would have to
Yeah.
maintain buffers and things like that. It's not like they could put a warehouse up right
No.
to the shore.
I mean, if you
And
look
they
at the
have
other
to
side of the creek, it's not the prettiest of coastline.
I mean, you have the Coast Guard there, but other than that,
Yeah.
the rest of it's mostly trees and stuff, which is nice. But I remember, I don't know, that actually, that's a nice, you can see kind of the shadow of it there. There's actually a graveyard there for some boats, so it's actually a good spot for, kayakers to go. It's a historic, World War I graveyard, for boats, and there's more up north of the bridge there.
Cool.
It's like a mile. So,
Yeah.
I think less trucks would be best, like, I think we keep going to warehouses and those are the jobs that don't pay well, and it's like a vicious cycle. And it would be nice to have less trucks, less truck noise, and talk about Ritchie Highway, how many trucks are on it. And even in the mornings now, 695 going west, there's trucks everywhere. I get it, everyone wants to do Amazon and stuff, we have Braden Woods, I think you mentioned, and then we have across the bridge, in Baltimore County, they have the giant complex at Sparrows Point. Like, can we be creative and think of a warehouse that doesn't require trucks? I mean, we have a sports field here,
yeah,
I mean, can we I don't know, I just think there could be so much more creativity for this space that's on the water and not just have another box warehouse with more truck traffic.
Like the DC wharf?
you can put the warehouses someplace that's not beautiful on the water.
Yeah, it's on the water, I mean,
Yeah,
District
exactly.
1. Region 1 doesn't have much water access as it is. Talked about that last week or last meeting. And this is on the water, and it would be nice, we have a park here, Like,
Right.
I get it, it's W2, but can we have like W2 that isn't like pumping diesel fumes into the air, like?
Well, that's why we're here. to
I know,
talk
and that's my
about
opinion.
zoning.
I mean, I know we're like, oh, it's boxed in by this, and this is no residential, this, you know, but like at the same time, like,
There's-
the trucks have to travel through to get
I mean,
there,
I
and they're driving through.
I agree.
And there's so much pollution already, you know, across the water on that side is the
They
landfill,
said
like.
the exact same thing for the wharf in DC.
And
Yeah,
Baltimore,
Exact
the-
same thing. It was all
Um,
nasty.
the city of Baltimore is actually developing a water trail
You're not
initiative.
You're not.
That's gonna be a big initiative where they're, developing like a water trail for kayakers. And so, you know, something like this or Sully Cove, as well can also be added to that trail. It can be extended. Anne Arundel County can become part of that trail. If we want.
So I'm hearing mixed view, like, you're right, like some residential makes sense to take
Yes.
advantage of the water.
It could be a
Uh,
master planned community with offices and residential. Doesn't have to be industrial, it doesn't.
But industrial can
One thing
also
that would
be.
prevent
It could be part of it, but it
One thing that
doesn't
would
have
preclude
to be.
residential from here is if there is contamination.
Right.
And it's like, that's gonna limit where you could do residential.
Well, you remediate it.
Then you
That's
would
just-
have to-
Still-
Yeah, there's a,
That's money.
Cost to remediate that
And-
level.
and right, merely, right, there's different levels of,
Okay, we're down in the weeds. This is high level thing.
no, but I think this is good conversation, because if you do industrial, you're kind of paving over these areas and you're more remediating it to somebody that's being there for 8-hour shifts roughly, rather than a family of 4 with kids, you know, sort of round the clock, so.
But leisure can still be a component.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not outside living.
So we do
Yeah,
have,
it's different
I think if it's the
standards
next slide, there's an
than
example, right?
Sparrows Point.
Yep, where there is that warehousing and distribution
Speaking of
and the park,
remediation.
right? Where they can build, maybe if it's not, if we can still take advantage of the water
I don't
access,
want this.
right, along the perimeter.
Right.
And the warehousing might be sited towards the interior of the site.
There's so many trucks going through there, they have a separate road in Dundalk for trucks to go on, right? There's just, there's like no trucks coming out of the streets, right? I think like 270 in like Rockville, Gaithersburg, that area over there. I mean, they have like wet labs, like Baltimore has such a huge medical field, right?
Mhm.
Like, why can't we have lab? Why can't we have like, I don't know, I think we can think bigger than just having a warehouse full of products and drivers that get paid minimum wage. I think we could
Right.
do something.
And this is going off of, I think,
Well,
one of Jonathan's statistics about professional. I think you all wanted to see more professional jobs
Yeah.
within this
Or
region.
He did explain
manufacturing.
what he is
He's got a
saying,
great
going with
point.
big jobs, where
Yeah, those are big jobs.
Well,
Yeah.
and we've seen a big trend to manufacturing jobs. Please don't discount.
Yeah.
manufacturing
Oh, I'm
jobs.
not, yeah.
Right.
Well, no, I'm saying the average annual wages for manufacturing jobs are going up.
Yep,
Manufacturing is becoming a lot harder than it used to be, where you had one specialist for one tool. And, you know, I work that metal lathe and this is what I make. There's now so much high tech in that they're becoming very technical manufacturers.
That's not a warehouse though. I like what you're
Well,
talking about.
yeah.
That's what. I think
But when you said
we're talking
manufacturing, I was thinking.
about. Yeah, manufacturing is what we
Great
like.
jobs to bring
I think
in.
about 270, I think about like everything along that
But I think
corridor.
we also have to consider market demand too, right? Somebody's not gonna acquire the site and build a product that isn't gonna have demand, right? It's gonna be hard to purchase this site and then build, office buildings, just because
right,
offices will look nice, right?
right.
Nobody's gonna build an office here.
Well, I've also got some-
nobody's gonna build offices, period. Forever, ever. I mean, you brought up GSA is freaking out with buildings. So manufacturing, labs, medical office buildings can fly. That we could do.
There's office buildings next to this. isn't there?
Nobody's doing,
I'm sorry.
oh,
There's office buildings right next to this.
There
Not
are,
this is Sparrows Point, but the previous.
Bay Meadows.
Is Toyota there? There's,
those are more warehouse.
Warehouse.
No, like there's some offices in there too, but
yeah.
as a whole right now, office is not in high demand.
And I think whatever you wanna call this office or warehouse area here, you don't have those heavy trucks going through. So that's all I'm saying
I
is
mean,
that like,
it'd be
it'd be
a
nice to
similar
have
use. I mean, like I said, that Bay Meadow Business Park piece
You know,
originally was part of the same property, it was split off. I would think when we say warehouse industrial, it's gonna be a similar type of product to that.
Okay,
Where it's gonna be, a lot of one-story warehouse type buildings, and, that's where the demand is right now. Talk about, build lab space or build manufacturing space, but, those companies aren't, banging down the door looking for space, so it's gonna be tough for somebody to invest money in that big property to build something that's not, in high demand.
Could that include flex
It
space
seems
as
like-
well?
It could be Flex, I mean, Flex is relatively doing okay.
Yeah.
lab space seems like it's a priority as well, because I know Baltimore just put on MLK, they just built a whole new wet lab, University of Maryland, right?
Across the street.
Yeah,
from
right
Maryland.
across the street from it, right? And I know the whole, like I said, 270 corridor is doing all of this amazing things. I think we have to be careful in the sense, like we talked about Sparrows Point, we talked about Brentwoods, I think you call it. Brandon, thank you, Brandon Woods is in New Hampshire. Yeah, Brandon Woods. What happens when that cycle ends, right? We're gonna have like warehouses of just, like, I don't know, I fear the fact that like everything goes in circles. And at some point, when warehouse demand and all these things are like slowed down, you're gonna have like cities that like fields of empty buildings, right? Like, I don't know, I think everything.
Like office buildings.
Yeah, that we are right now. Like, I get it.
Exactly.
That's where the money's at right now, but we also have to think about the future.
I work for a manufacturer that's not very far from here, right? And I run the HR department. We can't hire enough people to work in our facility. We can't hire enough
What do you
workers. We make those things. We make digital displays and school boards and
Oh,
kiosks
okay.
and things like that. It's kind of high-tech manufacturing.
Gable?
Gable. I work for,
Okay.
yeah, I work for Gable.
Great.
And
Great.
we can't hire enough people. And it's difficult, 'cause our schools really don't train the people that we can hire, and it's tough.
Mm.
So to have a high-tech manufacturing here, and and I used to work at Northrop Grumman, it was a struggle to find people.
Mark, you were starting to mention the water access when you were showing Trade Point. Where were you going? I don't think you finished your thought, because others were,
Oh, just as far as having a recreational amenity,
recreation.
right? So whether it's a trail that can wrap around the perimeter by the water, whether that can be woven into then, if it's a warehousing type of facility. Maybe that can be some consolation to the redevelopment. Right, yeah, or again, right, is whether it's just a driveway that might be carved out for water access. Right? It may not necessarily be an all or nothing with a warehouse, you might be able to get some other public amenities out there as well.
I'd like to ask Jonathan a question, probably last combination. Earlier you mentioned about the Coast Guard yard there and things that they do. Have they taken any interest in this property that we know of? Because right now, my understanding is this is the only place in the East Coast that the Coast Guard can really put in, and they're backed up at the yard, is from my understanding.
They are, they have another piece that they own on the same side of the street. I don't know if it's shown in this picture. They've definitely they're in the loop on this property, and I think that there's some collaboration there. The other big part of it is dredging. If the Coast Guard, the Coast Guard yard needs to kind of continue to dredge, to be able to, service the ships they service. So that's another big one of this too, is the dredging.
Doesn't look like the frontage over here is dredged out. Obviously, the creek itself is, the frontage doesn't.
I don't want to forget about Dan, who's on Zoom, and he chimes in with, I think we also have to consider what is surrounding that site before suggesting residential. I'm not sure how attractive it is to have housing close to some of the manufacturing operations just north of it.
Yeah, in the TOD plan anyhow, it was very much of a struggle to put residential. It seemed as though it would be a lot of work, as we were saying, because of that. I mean, we don't even know what's gonna happen with that, so. I don't think residential, I personally don't think residential would be the best option. for those reasons. I mean, it says it in here.
And again, we're just looking at one site, one redevelopment site. It doesn't have to be mixed use everywhere,
Sure.
right? We want to make sure that we're accommodating all uses or majority of uses, right? Throughout the region as appropriate. So, you know, thinking back to Cromwell, maybe that is the right spot for residential, office, retail, some type of mixed use, higher density. Maybe this is more appropriate for warehousing or flex space. So let's, and again, we can come back to these. I just want to make sure that we have time to go through each one. Eric, if you don't mind flipping ahead to then the next, oh, so let's touch on that one. Sorry, I forgot that we had this slide in here again, just an example. I also think a National Harbor where you do have that mixed use type of development along the waterfront. And you've got ferry service that takes you to those job centers, say in Baltimore. So there is, again, some precedent for some of these mixed use on the waterfront redevelopment sites. So Brandon Shores. Wes, do you want to tackle this one?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a ton of background on
Yeah.
this one. It's just something I think to put on everybody's radar for.
It's
for the
Curtis
future.
Day, just
We
north of
think
Orchard.
that there's a good chance that this facility is gonna close. But having the opportunity, at this site for potential redevelopment. Again, I don't have a whole lot of background on it. I would imagine there's probably gonna be some remediation that's gonna be required, if anything's gonna happen there, but, just to kind of put it on everybody's radar that at some point this could come into play, to be redeveloped in some form. And to orient you, this is Brendan Woods Business Park, Solly Road. This is, Fort Smallwood, thank you. Thank you. Just to orient you a little bit.
And the time frame, right, was the intent is close it down by 2025. It might be extended to say 2028. Given any pushback and making sure that energy is still provided and for residents. So we're in 2023, could be 5 years, could be another, and then there's the cleanup, there's everything else. This is, again, a very longer term type of redevelopment site. And it does have, again, the similarities to the Army Depot, where you do have that water access. So again, putting it out there for any thoughts of how this could be redeveloped, since we are developing a long-range plan, we want to take that into consideration. We want to take this site into consideration.
I used to work for Constellation Energy when they owned this facility. And just two things just to think about. I assume they still do. When that scrubber stack was put in, Constellation Energy bought sewer water from the county because they used the water in the scrubber stack. It was cheaper to clean the sewer water than it was to take water out of the bay and use it in the scrubber stack. So I know there was an agreement that we had signed with the county to buy that water, and it helped the county. They didn't have to, the water use was so great, it prevented them from having to build another sewer disposal facility there. And the other thing to think about, there's two smokestacks that are pretty tall. And then next to it is the bigger smokestack, which is newer, which was the scrubber stack. The two smokestacks that are tall are filled with fly ash. And so Constellation Energies has left them there because it was cheaper just to leave them there and just change the lights because they're required. And they had to get special FAA approval for the airport in the first place to build it. And it was too expensive to do those things because of the fly ash that's in those heavy metals and things. It's some nasty stuff.
I think people forget that this whole business park was built on fly ash.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but yes.
Oh, yeah, soften in
I assume if the flash is bad,
But it's got heavy metals in it,
okay.
and so the county water, the water was contaminated by it. So Constellation Energy in some areas had to put
Okay.
water lines in because a lot of people were on wells and they had to stop using the wells.
Has anyone ever been to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania? Yeah, the steel stacks, right?
Yeah, so that's.
It's a destination. They left up the steel stacks in Bethlehem, and it's actually a really nice picture to take. So I don't think that standing stacks are like the worst thing ever.
But just don't plan on taking them down.
And it kind of became like the center of the area around, they turned it into like a venue, actually, in Bethlehem. They have concerts like in the backdrop of the steel stacks, in Bethlehem. I think that, this area, and I actually, since I grew up in Norfolk, another area that I think in regards to like the fact that there's probably a lot of contamination here, is Mount Trashmore in Virginia Beach, which was built on a dump, but it's a beautiful park now. Yes, it's a very beautiful park. I grew up, and here's a funny story about Mount Trashmore. When I was a kid, a radio station announced on April Fool's Day that Mount Trashmore was erupting. And one lady actually believed it, and the radio station got in a little trouble, but anyways. So I think that, just because an area is contaminated and has an ugly steel stack, it can't turn into a area that's we can't reclaim it. Or
Yeah, and this isn't bad, this plant was built in the 70s. So there's not a lot of ketones and things like that. Yeah, this was all wooded area. The Constellation Energy cleared to build that plant. So it's not the kind of contamination you have at the Army Depot. It's, they burned salt coal there for a while, so there's some issues related with that, but it was pretty much clear territory, they call it.
So I live on the lower side, so the first little body of water is Cox Creek. The bigger body is Stony Creek. So I live on the beachy area of Stony Creek. And the Cox Creek folks, that's Orchard Beach and Stony Creek, we work with the guys of Brandon Shores. And we've got a little community group. And we talk to each other regularly about cleanup. I'm so excited when these guys shut down and we get to have something beautiful over there.
Yeah, sure. So you don't want another industrial plant there?
I don't know what it will be. I hope someone with more of a vision than industrial comes in, but you never know. But again, I keep looking at what happened in DC with National Harbor. Oh, well, that was Maryland and the wharf. I think anything can happen, so.
Could I ask, does CSX still own a lot of the property around here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, CSX still, yeah. They were gonna build a large, originally, I think it was B&O Railroad, they were gonna build a large, port facility and connect the trains, that's why they bought this.
Oh.
But the, ship freight coming into the city didn't support it, so they never developed.
And so what are the needs in this area? Because Tanyard Springs is just kind of to the west, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you live in the area. Where do you typically shop, or how far do you need to go for goods and services?
Not very far, right down Fort Smallwood is a little mom and pop grocery. We've got Harris Teeter down the road. We've got Giant down the Ordinance. We've got Costco down the Ordinance.
I think if this were to be redeveloped, I'm not saying it's the smokestacks in Bethlehem or anything, I think the concern that I had when I was looking at a place to live is that there's like really like limited access to this particular peninsula, right? Like,
yeah,
it's the drawbridges up across Curtis Bay. We just saw the picture,
Stony Creek.
the 695 bridge.
Oh, Curtis Bay.
Curtis
Yeah,
Bay, yeah.
yeah.
That bridge is up, you
Yeah.
can only take Solly Road or
Marley Neck.
Thank you, Marley Neck, and then like those roads could, I mean, just built all those houses there. So if we're gonna put something like too big in this area or change the purpose of it, I'm just concerned about traffic.
Right.
There.
And even the bridge south to where you live, there's a drawbridge there as well. And I think development is good, but I think it would have to be small scale just simply because the roads here and the entry points. They're already kind of getting filled.
And the office planning zone, we are working with Office of Transportation and other departments to, we're asking the same questions as, okay, what is the appropriate scale of development in this area? What would it take to, a road needed to be expanded? Is that reasonable in this area? Or are there other priorities, or does it make sense for that to happen elsewhere, to be invested in elsewhere in the region? So.
There's also an office building that Constellation Energy had, it's not part of the power plant, it sits closer to Fort Smallwood Road, and that's presently for sale.
Yeah, that one's currently available.
Yeah, that's available, and it's kind of a funky looking 70s kind of office building, part of it's round and part of it's, but it could be a development of a nice office facility for people, but you don't need any more offices.
So this one, I'm sort of hearing more of that, maybe more industrial type of use, maybe not so much the residential.
I mean, I don't know, you have residential right next to it.
Yeah.
To the south.
Yeah, I mean, any development you do, you're gonna have to deal with the roads, they're not gonna let you build something that doesn't address road issues, so.
But I didn't mean like nothing at all, I just didn't think like a 6-story National Harbor or industrial land steel, because I don't think the road system can handle that.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
but that's what I'm saying.
you
is
wouldn't
they-
be able to build it.
That one still's not, I mean, there's not, it's just it's the venue, it's not like there's houses or anything there. It's just a space for people to go.
Yeah, but like all those people going to it at the same time for a venue
Yeah.
on like a drawbridge road, like the drawbridge is up, like how are people gonna get to it?
You can easily access this from the Beltway, it's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah, you can go from 695.
Yeah, you take 695, you're
Yeah.
quarter,
get off
half a mile
695.
from 695.
But, I mean, I was thinking more like park, the park, I think, and, you know, I mean, I've never gone to an event in Steel Stacks, but, you know, I definitely, you know, walk by it and take a picture of it, you know.
I mean, in Anne Arundel County, I
Not that
subscribe
it's
to
just
these
there.
parks passes, and on holidays, you can't get in if you're late. So people are going driving to go to these parks, and you're waiting in long lines for people to come out of the park, or you just go somewhere else, and they're all the same.
Yeah,
So
you're talking about the
clearly,
smaller-
people are trying to do that, and I
Yeah.
mean, feel that.
And you're speaking of specifically parks with water access.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, I mean, you know, not necessarily to say beach and fish or things like that, but people want open space and they wanna, you know, look out, they wanna do things with their families, take pictures, you know, just general.
Yeah, the ones that don't allow you to swim are the ones you can actually get into in the summer, in the summer. Downs Park doesn't allow swimming, so that's the one I go to in the summer. I don't try to go to Fort Smallwood in the summer. I only go there in the winter.
I think there has to be like a happy medium, somebody who owns that privately is not going to build a park and not get any value out of it, so maybe.
Right,
some
and I
kind of-
understand that as well, so, yeah.
Yeah, combination of maybe park and whatever. mixed
The
use.
site's big enough to support a public.
Like
use, a
stores.
park,
Right.
and also something that's gonna repay whoever remediates this giant mess.
And this also is not far, I just remember from Fort Armistead, which is in
Yeah.
the city. And okay, Fort Armistead is not the best place in the world, but it can be packed on the weekends and people using it to launch their boats and things like that. So there's certainly use for that area.
I think bike lanes would be nice too, whatever, 'cause I think, well, Fort Smallwood is pretty big, especially in this part, and the people who just moved to Tenure Springs. Having access through means other than driving might be nice. And then a couple people in, Revere Beach? Stony Creek, the people in
Yeah.
this area too to get to it.
Yeah, on the other
driving.
side, it's
Yeah.
Revere
Yeah.
Beach.
Smallwood's, I mean, it's pretty, actually small.
It's a 2-lane divider road, it has like.
No, I mean, the park itself.
Oh, the
I
park.
like
yeah.
bikers. I see people go in there, take their bike there, and like, I'm like, where are you? Like, it takes like 2 seconds to get to that place in your bike. I walk with my dog there, and it still takes me a very short time, especially because they have the beach closed like half the time. I think it's closed right now, actually. So I haven't gone in a while. So this is, I see that large undeveloped space north of the plant, and I was like, wow, that'd be great if they could build a trail up there. Like, there's a lot of space up there.
That's where the dredge spoils are, correct? A little bit farther north.
That's to the north, yeah, the
Yeah.
Hot Creek Dredge facilities to the north.
Yeah.
Is that bad?
Yes. Which actually, talk about, trails and nature and stuff. Right next to that is a beautiful walking
Mhm.
trail, and I'm told if you're into bird watching, it's like a really great place to
Oh,
go.
and you tell us.
That's what we heard at the last meeting, yeah.
You told us about that
Yeah.
last meeting,
Study park?
the little area.
Somebody did, I don't know, if that's me, but I
Oh,
do remember that.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Let's, one of the last ones, not necessarily sort of a vacant site, but more of an opportunity area is Brooklyn Park Arts District. So going back to the small area plans, if anybody remembers those from the early 2000s, it was a process similar to this where the county was able to drill down and develop some land use plans specifically for some of the areas within the county. This Brooklyn Park Arts District was one of those ideas. How there are currently partners that are working together to develop art projects, beautify the area, and how that might then catalyze the area. There have been numerous studies by planners out there that say when you bring the arts, that's an opportunity for when you typically see revitalization in an area. So just want to get your thoughts on whether you think this is something that's viable, whether this is something you'd like to see carried forward in this region plan. Anything that you've seen or heard that's worked or not worked that we should then leverage going forward?
Where's the district at exactly? Yeah, but where's the boundaries of the district? Is it just like the theater itself or the art studio itself, or is it?
And around Route 2, so including that, and again, how to revitalize some of the businesses along the highway.
You could certainly use some color in that area, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
I mean, when I first was searching for a home like 17 years ago, one of the things I read, I think this was under O'Malley. And he was talking about this sort of plan of economic development that related to sort of an arts district and building, and that was attractive to me, but I haven't been there 17 years, I haven't seen it yet.
We've sponsored, there's a maker's space in here, and that is really helpful. You can go there and learn welding and learn all kinds of things. And it's modeled after the maker space that's in the city by
City Garage.
yes, by the city garage, yes, thank you, yeah, there by
Port Covington.
Port Covington, yes, across the street from
Give it an
Port
identity,
Covington.
that's.
And it's a great opportunity for people, and unfortunately, I don't think it's utilized that much.
Where is this?
It's there on Hammond's Lane and Richard Highway,
Right.
and you could go there and they've got classes on all kinds of fabrication things that you could learn that could help with employment. My grandkids go there and take art classes too, so it's a whole mixture of things.
yeah.
Yeah, my kids take dance classes there as well.
Yeah,
There's a nice theater in there.
there's a theater, yeah, the old high schools,
It definitely seems underutilized. I mean,
Yeah.
when I'm in there, I'm like, where's everybody?
Yep.
So, there's opportunity for, creative space, use, different things to draw in the community to be able to utilize the space. I don't understand why it's not. Why it's not, being, marketed as such. It needs to be, marketed properly. It needs to be known. I mean, it's in our community. We have a PBA school attached to it, you know, and
What is that?
performing visual arts.
Oh, thank you.
And so, you know, we need the people within our community to be utilizing the things that are in our community already. To draw other people to want to say, what are they doing? What are they doing over there? You know,
It's a tremendous after-school asset too.
Right.
And Dan is echoing the maker space, that it's used pretty frequently. And heard that the class schedule is pretty filled and that the CAC is continually adding to the roster of classes. So,
Well, that's exactly opposite.
Well,
Yeah.
because I
Wait,
live there
so
and
opposite.
I'm telling you, that I see them asking for different, maybe it's the type of class. That's all that I can answer, because I do see adults utilizing the space, often, but you know, our youth, having that opportunity as well. I see them asking for people to be in classes. I mean, I'm firsthand, my kids go there. So I'm not too sure 100% about the makerspace, but I knew they do have those classes. I just feel like it could be more, you know.
glad you touched on youth because this is we're looking at a
Right.
10-20 year plan.
Right.
And oftentimes we forget about that generation, the younger
Right.
generation that we don't typically see around the table or in the public,
Yes.
so.
Sure, mental health, I'm big on that, I'm always talking about mental health. But, you know, arts and all of that,
Yeah.
stimulation, it's a deterrent to, negative activity. These are things that we should be, partnering with our schools to help our communities grow, with these type of, things for the arts district.
So one of the things I noticed when I came here, one of the coolest things was, on the Baltimore Annapolis Trail, they have that, little, science thing with, the solar system. Has anyone seen it? Where you're going along the trail, you've seen it.
So it's a scale model.
It's a scale
start
model.
From Baltimore and it ends, the last piece is Pluto off of, the Ranger
Yeah.
Station in Serona Park.
Yeah, so you see exactly how far the Earth is, the solar system, how large the solar system is as you're going along the trail, how distant the planets are. So, I mean, I think that that's a really fun way it's a little bit of art, a little bit of science, and it's also leveraging kind of the recreational stuff and it's engaging people. And, you know, it's kind of like putting something in a toilet space where somebody's gonna be looking at it, right? Guaranteed to be looking at it. Like, I don't know, decorating a park bench or something like that. Space that somebody's actually looking at. I don't know. Is where I see, like that space right there, I see that, and I don't know, I think that really just creates an atmosphere of,
Joy.
joy, yes,
Very nice.
vibrancy.
I'm like, yeah.
Identity.
I mean, I noticed when they painted it too, I was like, oh, you know, the murals went up along the side, I was like, oh. And then, you know, it just was so nice, you know, and I like I said, I lived in Philly at one point, and that's what it looks like.
Do they have like a statue project? Cause in Norfolk, when they started this thing, in Norfolk, where they had these different mermaids all over the city. And different artists would decorate the mermaid with different themes all over the city. And it's continued, like, I started when I was living there, and it's continued, and it was just I don't know who started it but it was something that started like as a theme. And it kind of, yeah, it became an identity of the city.
The city's done that several times. I don't think it's ever made it out to the county though. There's
So-
crabs and fish and several things all over. the
Yeah,
city.
the crowd, they have the crowd, Lord, Baltimore's got the crowd mark.
So if you're in support for it,
Other use for the space, my company has used this, it's a great meeting space. We've had company meetings there, where they're in the theater where you can have a presentation, and then there's a large area where you could eat, and we've had catered meals in there. And it's just a great economical place to have a really decent meeting.
It's a good congregating place.
Yeah, so, yeah.
We had National Night Out there, at
Mm.
1 year. Okay.
what types of uses do you see helping to support an arts district?
I think not, I feel like it's going back to the building, a lot of the things people like about it, and I live down the street from here. I love this building, I love what it produces, but I feel like it's confined to the building itself.
Okay.
Like, I was driving down, Ritchie Highway today, and I was like, you wouldn't even know it's almost like Hanukkah or Christmas or Kwanzaa or whatever, you wouldn't even know it's any holiday. There's no like, nothing to make people feel happy, like arts therapy, right, and Brooklyn Park has always been kind of a little rough, right? And it'd be nice to have something that have the show cheer.
Okay.
And for me, like the only time I get that feeling of creativity, inspiration is when I drive by this. And it'd be nice to not see it as a building, but to actually see it as a district,
Yeah.
you know, so see more of the bus stop mural that we have here. I've never seen anything like it. If I saw that, I'd be like, it's really cool. But I feel like it's too confined to the building. It needs to be, the building is just a place, but the idea needs to spread beyond the building. And going back to what you said, you don't really see that installations in the county. And why not, right? Like,
And Dan added a couple comments here that Lynn Miller, who has led the Sustainable Communities Initiative and renewing the application, that there are several strategies within that. So again, when I share that with you all, you'll see that. And they also discussed pursuing the state designation. So
what would that do?
I'm not so familiar with it. Yeah, but I think that's something that we can look into.
We'll learn together.
We will.
I think part of the issue with like Brooklyn Park is it's a state road. That's why you don't see like, you know, if it was a county road where they put lights and trees, and you don't see any of that because
That's true.
there's so many in parts of the county are like that, like Godin, and that's 2 state roads go through it. It takes away from what you can, you know, the atmosphere you'd like to have.
Mhm. That's what I'm saying.
Never thought about that.
Well, maybe that should change.
Take that.
You have to step up and take care of it. SHA would be happy to have you do it.
Even Church Street though, you know, it doesn't have to be, Richie Howard, be Church Street
I
or.
know the Linthicum improvement, I think they put up something around, their little sign. That they have Linthicum has a sign, you know, the sign over on Maple
Yeah,
Avenue. I
yeah.
feel like every year they put up something like a little Christmas decoration. But that's just,
That's special. Well, yeah, there's the LSIA.
yeah.
Actually, it's actually not LSIA that does it. They help support it. But it's the decorating committee that stepped out. And
I don't know.
if you drive through Lincoln right now, you will see garland on the shopping center and fences and at the light rail park.
Oh, yeah.
That goes on
little
next to
station,
the
yeah,
train station, this kind of stuff.
Train
The
station.
Veterans Memorial on Camp Mead in Maple has red, white, and blue Christmas tree. We just had a Christmas tree lighting. Not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before, the first Sunday in December. So they're, you know, we're pretty active with doing this kind of stuff. If you drive through, you'll see the little banners that's on a lot of this street pole or the telephone poles, particularly on Camp Mead. That was like pulling teeth to get permission, but that didn't have anything to do with the state. It had to do with BG&E and Verizon.
They're copyrighted.
So
Can't be wrong.
getting them involved as partners and working with them rather than asking, say, for permission.
Well, that set a precedent, right? So
Yeah.
that you could be carrying forward up
Yeah.
since they're.
Okay. So those were some of the, looking to see if Dan had included any other comments. Are there any other locations within Region 1? And again, we'll come back to this because when we talk about zoning, we'll be rolling out maps and drawing on them and say, oh, that's right, there is that vacant site just down the road from where I live or work. You know, and that would be a good site for X, Y, and Z. So we'll have the same conversation, maybe just a little bit more focused on a specific zoning district that would be most appropriate. So, but again, just wanted to review a couple of these sites and opportunities. Any other thoughts?
Well, yeah, if we're gonna talk about children and they're the next generation, it might make sense to look at where they are actually gonna be, where they're gonna be traveling. What areas they might need to convene, to hang out, that we could make sure that we're providing space, providing buildings or open space for them.
Mhm.
Like, again, I go back to that Glen Burnie High School. Because I drive down Route 2 just to run errands and I see the beautiful high school kids kind of, you know, going back and forth from their high school. And I often think, do they have somewhere that they can go and hang out that's safe and not legal, but welcomed within their community? They're not loiterers and harassed.
We're kind of special because down the street from here, they're building a site like that for kids. I can't think of the name of the kids, but yeah, they're building the library. Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know the names. I'm like, I have kids, but yeah, but yeah.
You get the feel of what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think
It's like
mobility is.
following the fish.
Ability is definitely involved.
Where are the fish going? Where are the children going?
Yeah.
Where do they need to hang out?
Or where could they be going? Again, I think it
But
might
let's
go
see
to
that then.
scooters and maybe
Right.
having them in certain locations. that they
Right,
can get
let's
to.
see that, that's not industrial, like, obviously, we've got to look at that part, but let's overlay it with where children are gonna be going and doing.
And children are here too. And the thing about it, this is next to the school.
Right.
It'd be nice to have like walkable, safe streets.
Yeah, like,
across.
how do they get there?
Yeah, because Richie Highway's scary to cross, especially at rush hour. And if I was a parent, I wouldn't let my child cross there by themselves. So
No, that-
having streets that are safer for pedestrians and for the community to walk to enjoy these art centers and everything else
Right.
is very important. I think walkability is missing where we live in Brooklyn Park.
Right, and that we've expressed that.
Yeah, to get to this.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, the other big site area, I'm not sure, did we talk about that last month, the other end of Hammond's Lane at 648, that big, whatever it is.
Belgrove?
Yeah, not at Belgrove, at Hammond's Lane and B&A Boulevard, 648. The old gravel pit, yeah, there's been talk with our county representatives on that, doing something
there's one
with
of
that.
school there.
And yeah, I'm not sure what, it's this huge area that's, I don't know what the status of it is.
Are there any skate parks in Anne Arundel County?
Just thinking.
Yeah, there's one over by,
Where?
Dorsey.
I got you.
I run by with the dog, that's the spot. we
Right next
run
to
by.
Cromwell.
Okay.
Because I see a lot of kids
I
in
wanna
my
go-
neighborhood that seem to be trending, but they're in the street and.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah.
a nice one. I see people there all the time.
Chip, going back to your comment, we're talking about the Belgrove site, is that correct? Where the
Gravel pit.
gravel pit is?
It's Belgrove Road, I mean, it's on the,
Well,
well, I
it's-
guess part of it goes over to Belgrove, yeah.
It's a mining.
It's a mine.
But the entrance is on
Entrance is
648, on
B&A.
B&A, entrance is on B&A
Correct.
Boulevard.
Yeah, right, and they have been in, going through the legal process of getting potential rezoning.
That's what I
and-
heard, yeah.
And so there may be an opportunity to discuss that. I think their intent is doing some type of warehousing as well as some residential, so,
Game of the night.
yeah.
Yeah, the county was gonna buy the site, and
That's
all
what
of
I
a
thought,
sudden, and all of a
yeah.
sudden it seemed
They were
to
trying
have
to
fallen
buy it.
through. And now the owners of the gravel pit want rezoning and,
Mhm.
and expanding things, because whatever permit they have is a special exception that's running out. So they need to do something.
Right.
Wes, do you know about this?
Yeah, I'm aware of the project. I know it's.
What is your take?
I think it's let the legal process work itself out. I mean, it's different kind of talking about, I mean, this is one that's already sort of been submitted, so it's kind of tough to talk about this. It's kind of underway.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think they're kind of already down the road, and we'll see where the appeals go.
It's in circuit court, I believe, right?
Oh, gotcha, thank you.
Mark, I don't want to tangent too far. I was gonna ask on the sideline, but I think it's relevant. They're talking about building this high-speed rail through Region 1, right? I know it could be far-fetched, it could be a 10-year plan, a 15-year plan, whatever, right? They're talking about it.
Maglev.
Yeah, the maglev. So like, is the county looking at that and considering what impact that would have on our region and as far as planning and zoning and economic development?
Our two guys just took a.
Because you know we have, like, so.
The other impact statement, sorry, the environmental investment statement is still on hold, right?
Yeah.
Is it still on hold?
Yeah.
Okay. I know they just came to an agreement with the developers in Baltimore for the site, so I wasn't sure. No, PG County had a lawsuit against them stopping, but I don't know what we're doing, so I was just curious. Anything? Any
There's
plan?
organizations within the Linthicum area that's fighting it,
Yeah.
trying to stop it. If you look at the path that it's supposed to go, the one that is quote unquote proposed right now has a tunnel right underneath Linthicum Elementary School. So
Looks like right
they're
under
saying there's no
these houses.
environmental impact and let's put it this way, from an engineering standpoint, it makes no sense. You're not gonna go from Baltimore to DC in 15 minutes and stop in BWI. Sorry, impossible.
Or pay $50 to do it.
I guess you have spoken.
I am sorry for bringing that up. I am quiet now. I think I do.
Figured it just got debauched, honestly.
Now it's, I mean, it's on pause.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what happens when things
And
get
then,
debauched.
and then you go look at the ones that they have in Germany, which had a major crash and closed
That's what I'm
down,
saying.
doesn't work. What they tout in Japan, and it's not even the
If
same
it was
thing.
happening,
So,
they would still be talking about it more. When the thing push and then,
Right.
no, everyone stopped talking about it.
They've been talking about it since 2000,
I
that I remember.
I I looked at the map and I was like, wow, that goes like right under the house I was renting at the time. I'm not living there anymore, it's a little further away now.
I think I'm the only.
Okay.
Resident that would love to have that built. It would, what it would do to our property value.
Oh,
It would be amazing.
There'd be no problem getting booked in part.
Yeah, build
Yeah.
that, build that puppy
That's what I was
tomorrow.
curious about, economic. I was like,
economic impact.
BWI and then Port Covington or whatever.
I remember when Friendship was expanded to BWI and the same arguments against that are similar natured arguments against this maglev train. And it could be economic engine that BWI is right now.
We could be here all night. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's-
so we
let's
we can
move
talk about
on.
this maybe a little bit later if anything does, if that hole or that pause in the study, if anything actually does then happen, we can discuss that a little bit more. But I think for tonight, oops, I see a couple more chats.
Oh. No.
Right, so Dan, he wrote this a few minutes ago, but yeah, he says the company that owns the quarry is trying to get it rezoned. I think they're hoping to develop housing and some mixed use buildings, I think, so. So again, we'll provide updates, if anything becomes available about the, Belgrove site is what we're calling, so. Let's move on to, if y'all are okay, moving on to the vision statement. Next slide. So again, provided just a little bit of context here about what a vision statement is. I think maybe you all are probably familiar with what it is and what it does. And really, I do want to emphasize, we would write it in a way of saying, you know, if we were to be dropped back here in Region 1 in 20 years, what would we say about it? Region 1 is a safe, connected community. You all fill in the blanks there. During our outreach, a couple months ago, here are the graphs where we received, whether people were in favor or felt it was important to address these certain items within these different topic or categories. And so I've provided that to you, not necessarily just in this presentation, but I provided you the PDF as well, so you can zoom in as necessary. We're also preparing a summary document for you all, because not only was it say, provide statistics like this, but we allowed open-ended responses for people to include additional comments that we may not have addressed in the survey. So that'll come to you all shortly. Just wanted to provide a flavor here and get you all thinking, get those creative juices flowing a little bit about what people are supportive of, or what people think are most important, what people think may not necessarily be important to include in the vision statement for this region plan. So our thought is, we'll talk about this at the next meeting where we can actually bring up a Google document and edit something in real time, wordsmith a few things, make sure that we have all your concepts in there. But to get us going, what we did for the first round, Marilee and Jim knows well, office planning and zoning developed a draft vision statement, and we'll ask Karen and Eric, your chair and vice chair, to develop one, and we'll put it in a survey for you all to vote on. And it's more just a matter of, we're just asking you, which one do you want to start with? right? We know there's gonna be changes. We're not asking you to agree on that being the final vision statement, but it's really just saying, hey, this one seems like the easiest one to work with during our next meeting. And we'll also have an open comment box where you can say what you like or dislike about that vision statement. So it's really just so that we're not starting from scratch. So we have something to react to and get the ball rolling. So if y'all are okay with that, we'll craft that over the next couple weeks based on this information that we've provided. And then we can really hammer it out at the next meeting.
Can you also provide the, like, the region 2 one that was?
Sure.
Just to give them an
As
example.
an example,
Kind of what
sure.
it ended up being like.
Yeah. And I know we say vision statement, but typically it might be a couple
Yeah.
sentences, a few sentences
Vision paragraph.
with commas, lots of commas. Right. And it worked out well, I think, right?
It was good exercise.
Yeah. So, yeah, kudos to the Region 2 team. I think you all did it in 45 minutes or something. Yeah, right, right.
Yeah, no,
All right, then looking at next steps. So I mentioned a few of these things earlier. That zoning application, we did extend the deadline that now closes in a couple days. The draft natural environment strategies questionnaire that is live if you go to our hub site, aacounty.org/region1. It's one of the top 3 announcements that we have up there at the top of the page. Our next stakeholder advisory committee meeting is January 17th at the Chesapeake Art Center. And then even looking ahead another month and a half another month and a half, I guess. Same thing, what we did with the natural environment strategies, where we talked about it here, got an idea of what y'all were supportive of. We'll put that into an actual strategy or recommendation, and we'll put it out to the public in a questionnaire. We'll also be in person at the Brooklyn Park Library. We want to get around the region, and we'll just be available during the daytime for individuals to come by and chat with us about what's on their mind, if it's something specific to economic development, or provide some feedback on those specific strategies. So those are our upcoming events, and just wanted to provide some information on our speakers from this evening as well.
Mark, how well was the one at the Lincoln Library attended?
Good question. We received, I think it was seven individuals, 7 families. We were able to get some foot traffic from people that were attending another event or families that were coming by and picking up some books. In general, I would say it wasn't well attended. I'm not sure if it was because the community room is sort of tucked away in the back and you don't get that good visibility or even just walk through traffic. When Sam and I did Region 2, we set up in the Maryland City Library, actually in the hallway. People kind of bumped into us, right? And that would sort of start a conversation. Oh, what are you doing? What's this? You know, so we're always thinking about how we can improve our visibility, foot traffic, engagement. We're also looking for you all to share when we're doing these public engagement opportunities. And hopefully, again, if people have questions, we're on your turf to answer those questions. So again, any feedback, we're always welcome. Always happy to receive any thoughts.
Mark, have you had many zoning applications?
How many do we have? 30 some on?
Right now, we have about 29 of them. Some of them are duplicates, a couple of them kind of like comments. But we've got a good chunk more than we did receive in Region 9 or Region 2. I think overall we'll have about, by the end of it, it's like a good solid 30 in Peru.
Are we doing a tour?
So what we're putting, that's a good question. What we've been working on internally is more of a virtual tour where we're working with our research and GIS division to develop a story map where we've identified some areas from what you've mentioned in the kickoff meetings and some other areas that we think might be, say, either controversial assets, challenges within the area. And you'll be able to, we'll give you a sort of, it's a narrative, a driving map roughly, and some some other inspiration of where to go in the community. So long story short, we're not doing an in-person driving tour. One of the reasons is because we don't want to violate the Open Meetings Act and given resource, because we need to then break up into 7 and 7. Well, we have 15 members. And so we would essentially have to do 3 tours if everybody wanted to do it.
It
Right.
was just, it was,
So-
actually, I thought it was eye-opening. I mean, it was
I know.
so nice to go to all the places and see the parts in between, not just the
Right.
places. It was very helpful.
And so that's sort of what we're doing here. It's just gonna be on your own time to drive around and see these areas. And we're pointing out what those elements are that maybe you wanna look at it within these areas.
What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
So,
You're gonna give us a map and we just go by ourselves?
yeah, so it's an
Okay.
well, it's not necessarily interactive, but it's a scrolling type of form. And because I think you're all sort of sharing ideas of what are important assets in your community. And I've heard some people say, oh, I've never been over to that side of Region 1.
Right.
Tell me more about why I should see this area.
Right.
And so that's what we're doing is we're putting a pin on a map and we're saying in 1 or 2 paragraphs, this is, why you might want to visit this site.
Is there a problem with having 3 tours? I mean, I just feel like we're gonna miss out if you're only doing it yourself and you're not getting input from the people that live in the area.
Of what to look for.
My girl wants a tour,
Yeah, I know.
I'm too much habits, but
If I get a bus, can we go?
Public school bus.
So,
Maybe a school bus.
so again,
You can get a better
if we
one.
have if we have 8 people, then it has to be open to the public.
We gotta have a.
And so then there's the issue of how to coordinate, making sure that the public is on the bus as well. And so how do you determine how many people from the public are going to show up?
So we did 2.
Because we had 7 or at that time, 7 or less, we didn't have a quorum on those buses.
we're a big group.
Sign up.
So-
First come, first served.
It needs to be available to the entire public, right? So, thanks to the 2 folks in the crowd tonight, but it could be 100 people could have come tonight if they were interested. And it's difficult to do that. so.
I just feel like we're gonna, I thought.
Well, we
that
could
was
still
the
do it
best
on,
thing.
we could we can get together,
Uh,
5 of us and go,
Actually, we can't.
We cannot actually.
Yeah, we can't because of that open meeting violation.
send 5 of
I
us.
did the
7 of
ethics
us.
training.
7 of us can get together. And many can fit in my car.
It's also situation.
We could
In my car small.
Different, but it's.
So- Let's,
Why can't you all come on the bus and Zoom meet it for the rest of the people in the community?
we would need to ensure that there's adequate cell service or.
Yeah, true, right.
Trust me, when we thought about this, and Marilyn, I don't disagree, I'd like being in person and doing this, but. With the constrained time frame for this round of region plans, staff resources. This is what we've identified as the best opportunity. We'll go with it with this round. There is that opportunity in the next round to.
That's a sad.
If we're getting, I know. If you want to drive around together, the 2 of us, we could do that. Or, and 6 other, because I'm not on the committee, so
True.
if you want to get 6 other friends,
Good of me.
we can do that. But let's see how this goes. We're hoping to push that out to you all, I think, in the next month. If y'all, we can go from there, if that works for you. So. Okay, so that's all I had. this
Yeah,
evening.
I do want, I do want to have it, since it's only 2 minutes, we only have 2 people. I do want to allow you to give comments if you do want at this time, you have 2 minutes for each person.
I will take a little bit of time here. When you all were talking about the schools, we have to have so many people, if there's too many people, we have to bus them. Why aren't we doing this with the police and the fire department?
What do you mean?
Yeah, you can elaborate.
Because, okay, you talked about Cromwell earlier. That place is robbed all the damn time. Every time I go into a store, somebody's walking out with stuff. They look like the Pillsbury Doughboy. They're so stuffed full of stuff they're stealing. So we need more police. The neighbors have been fighting it, both Ferndale and Linthicum, and I think in other areas, for years and years and years. We've been to MTA hearings, meetings, whatever you wanna call them. When we say, hey, could you put some more police on the MTA and blah, 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 they say, you need to go to your representatives and tell them we want more money so we can extend the light rail. And then we say, hey, does that mean that you're gonna put more guards on there? And they never answer. So
Yeah,
when you build this stuff, they will come. You need to have police, you need to have the fire department.
I think,
Laura Donovan.
Thank you.
I think of it too is when you do revitalize some of these areas, then you have more eyes on the street and in the community.
Everybody's afraid to go out. Nobody's looking, and if they're looking, they don't want to get shot, so they're looking another way. Cromwell, the guy at the liquor store, was shot in his own store.
Yeah, and we don't
He
do,
got run over by that train up there.
for this region plan, we don't get into the operations or
But
staffing
my
levels
point
of police and fire.
I understand what you're saying, but my point being is that even if you don't supply it, you have to factor that in.
Sure.
So, I'm done. Thank you.
If you have any, this is for anybody in public and listening on Zoom, if you have any further questions, comments, you can email the Office of Planning and Zoning, and they will direct your questions and comments appropriately so that you can get feedback or provide feedback as well.
And that email address is region1@aacounty.org.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm just looking for a motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn.
A second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, guys, see you guys. We're out.